Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 15. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Jody.
Hello, hello.
And Villy.
¿Cómo estás?
Wait, what?
We're just fucking with Moritz.
I'm always trying to mess with you guys by introducing you in a different order.
Yeah, I always wait like, who's going first?
Who's it going to be? Today we're going to cover chapters 32, 35. And while we're talking about the chapters, I just want to mention quickly that we are heading into the pointy end of this book. And unlike The Eye of the World, the chapter breakdown does not lend itself to a nice, clean 6 chapters per episode split.
Ah, fucking...
No, so that means we can write some chapters. We can have our own chapters added to the story.
I will get into a more detailed breakdown of how we're going to run the last couple of episodes with the chapter breakdowns for that. And speaking of coming up to the end of the book, Villy, we have mentioned a couple times on the show now that it's been a little while since you've actually finished The Great Hunt. And what we have not discussed is whether you have actually proceeded with starting The Dragon Reborn.
I have not. I've made a very, very conscious choice about it after now having read The Eye of the World and The Great Hunt 3 times in a row that I'm just going to wait with The Dragon Reborn, and I'm going to try and read it. No, lie. I'm just going to, as soon as I start, I'm just going to finish it in 2 days and read it again.
Because like Jody and I were talking about before as well, like over the Christmas break, you know, we were both toying with the idea of reading ahead. I mean, I had the lofty goals of finishing the book as well. Only ended up getting like a couple chapters ahead. But I feel like I already saw in the previous episode that my comments in that episode were colored by my knowledge of even just the next 4 chapters. And I know that's a crazy thing to take note of when I have read the entire series and the whole show is about a reread. But I think I'm going to slow down as well. I'm only going to read the chapters that we are supposed to cover for each episode.
I find it so hard. Unlike you two gentlemen, I have a little bit more time on my hands on a leisure Sunday. And once you wake up with a cup of coffee and you pick up that book and you're like, oh, it's not a great day outside. And I have this book and this coffee and I can read it now.
This book is amazing. I could be reading this book right now.
I could just continue reading it and read a third of it this whole day.
How about you, Joe? Are you gonna read ahead at all? Do you find it influences how you participate in this conversation?
I have, and it does. I'm now in chapter 41 of this book. I got ahead of myself. It just gets so interesting. And I want to see what's going to happen. Like, so close to the end. And yes, it does affect what I'm going to say today. Probably.
It's going to sound stupid, but I actually kind of want to sound somewhat uninformed because this is me rereading the thing after, so many years of not reading it. Like half the fun is saying things with utter certainty and then the next week having to come back, bashful going, so that thing I said, that's clearly not true. That's obviously wrong.
Well, it gives us fodder.
Indeed. Isn't that something we're going to discuss? Pronunciation is a huge thing.
Oh, yeah. More on that real soon. Let's quickly do some callbacks to our previous episodes before we dive into our the meat of this thing. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that Jody and I were dancing around a spoiler in the last episode. And Vinny, due to, audio and technical issues, all your responses in that exchange did not make it into the final cut. But I wanted to ask you up front now, do you want us to hold back on major spoilers if we can? If, we're here to talk about foreshadowing and spoilers and stuff. And when I listened back to the episode, it did sound to me a bit like counter to what we were trying to do. And that is just, Jody and I obviously wanting to spare you the disappointment of hearing a big story point way in advance. How do you feel about it? Do you have feelings about it at all?
I am not one of those people that sort of hold on to discovering something for the first time myself that is already out there and known. Mm-hmm. It's going to come. I'm not going to lie down tonight lying there saying like, shit, they actually told me this thing that's going to happen and I'm reading the books and like, wow, what dicks. What terrible cunts. I'm busy doing a spoiler cast with that I was explicitly said, well, I got two choices. Either I got to read real fast and read it all, or I'm going to be confronted with a spoiler. So no, I'm not. I will listen to it and I will react appropriately at the time, but I'm not going to harbor resentment of any of the kind because I'm going to read it all anyway. And by all means, how much you guys remember, your spoiler's probably going to be 50% off.
Don't worry. Yes, they'll be wrong. There won't be very many of them. But okay, cool. That's good to know. And I wanted to do that on air as well so that our listeners don't think, Jody and Moritz fucking dickheads spoiling everything for Villy. They don't even take him into consideration. But so what I've decided that I'm going to do, and Jody, you're obviously free to make up your own mind, I will leave that previous spoiler unspoiled. But from here on out, I'm not going to hold back.
I agree with you 100%, Moritz. I'm also not. It's towards the end of book 14. So it really has no impact on our story right now.
No.
What Min said something. Min didn't say something when she saw something. What the fuck? That's her MO. So let's just leave it.
See, now you guys are just pissing me off because now all I just want to know.
Everyone dies in the end, Villy.
The only reason I didn't spoil it at the time is because I wasn't sure that was actually the thing that Min was talking about, and that I would be doing a spoiler for no reason.
Okay, well, to answer your question, I have signed up to doing a spoiler cast, expressing me and with the knowledge that I have not read all 14 books. I made it somewhat into book 11 by the sounds of it, and I remember probably the total content of one book. So
yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. I think we're all on the same page now. Okay, then here's a more straightforward one. When we spoke about the farmer that stayed behind in Cairhien to join the riots and became a Queen's man, I called him Emil Bunt. His name's Elman Bunt. And I only say that because he does actually crop up, Villy, spoiler, in some of the last books. He crops up again. He's Jody. He's the guy that's busy picking apples when Rand comes down from the mountain, and all the apple trees start. All the apple trees start sprouting, and all the flowers and things start growing around him. Like Elman Bunt is the guy that Rand walks straight past, and he's like, "Whoa,
I know that guy."
Witness? Yeah.
Hey, you're the guy from the back of my cart.
Okay, so now let's talk about chicken organs.
Yes, please.
Giblets.
I said that giblets. Is that the right pronunciation, Joe? I think it's giblets.
It is giblets.
Are chicken stomachs. They're not just stomachs. They're also the heart and the liver and the gizzards of a chicken.
But isn't... listen, I disagree. Aren't gizzards giblets?
Gizzards are the stomachs.
Ah, well, there you have it, people.
So at the top of the hierarchy, you have giblets that include heart, liver, and gizzards are stomachs and other things.
How do they exactly hang a child by a chicken stomach?
With great difficulty. Villy, when you were talking about Domon being boarded by the Sean Chan, and we were sort of fluffing around why he got smacked in the face, and I confused it for the moment where he asked about the demand and that soldier put his sword to his neck. Domon asks Aegeanin in that moment when the demand is on the boat, he asks her, "Is she Aes Sedai?" And that's when she slaps him. Just the mention of the word Aes Sedai gets him a gauntleted slap. We also had a bit of talk. I mean, Villy, when you summarized the Sean Chan chapter, we were talking about how I had in the past confused his second in charge, who we learn in these chapters is called Huon. He's the big blonde guy with the braid on the one side of his head, yellow robe, yellow slippers, yellow hair. And I'd always thought that Turak was the big guy, but it's not. It's Huon. Turak himself is bald. Turak doesn't have any hair. And the reason that I thought he was maybe more effeminate is because of his clothing. Like he had clothes with lots of little birds and things embroidered on them, and he had the long fingernails, and he was bald. And and Turak's speech also had a rhythm like singing. It's quite a weird and out of place sight when when Dae'mar meets him. Then the big one that I mentioned to you guys before recording, pronunciation of what thus far I've called Cairhien is actually Khai-Rehen.
It's
Now,
ridiculous.
I take exception to this. There are better ways to write Cairhien to get that pronunciation. I mean, the word Cairn, first of all,
Like
you know,
cans.
like it's right there. Yeah, just like the town. It's right there, and the pronunciation is well established, and the spelling of the first couple letters of this is that. That is why my mind went in that direction. And Kai, like you would start that with a K, right?
Well, how
I
is
wouldn't.
Cairo, the city in Egypt,
Ah,
spelled?
God damn it, Billy.
Okay, Billy.
Shotgun blast to that theory.
Cairo.
You're
Oh,
right.
fuck.
Yeah. So let's see how many times in this episode I correct myself, because you know it's one thing reading the word and the name and trying to pronounce it and then doing notes and writing it down, even writing it phonetically a couple times, but it's a completely different thing actually saying the word.
So what are we calling it now? Cairo.
Cape Town.
Cape Town.
There we go.
You know what? I might just stick with Cape Town because like for me to change something that's been stuck in my head for the last 15
hard, eh?
years, 16 years, if not more, and now to say, how did you pronounce that?
No.
Cairhien?
Cairhien.
Cairhien.
Mm.
Cairhien.
Just wait until we get to speaking about people from Cairhien. What do you call them?
Cairhenians?
Cairhenians.
I don't know.
Douchebags.
Douchebags.
Douchebags, that's it.
There's short douchebags.
The short douchebags. We'll go with that.
All right. That concludes this shit show of a callback section. Let's get stuck into the real business that we all came here for. We're starting with chapter 30, obviously, called Daes Dae'mar. And Villy, that is yours to serve up to us. Let's go.
Whew. Damn. All right. So when we left our fellows, they had just met Thom. They went back to the inn, still waiting for the arrival of Ingtar and the Lancers, and Perrin and Matt, and a little bit known to them, Perrin. But anyway, Rand is in the room. It's been a couple of days since the Thom meeting. Let's say maybe a day or 2 or 3. And he's frustrated, like pacing up and down. Perrin is trying to get him to sleep, just like take a rest. And he's like, no, you'll take the next watch. And Perrin's like, nah, don't worry, my lord. Very, very proper. Like, and it's getting under Rand's skin. Like the Cairhien way has rubbed off on Perrin in a big way. He's become a super servant, if there is such a thing. Like he's acting the part. He's really, I think he's actually enjoying it. Maybe he feels like it's a little bit better than being in the borderlands fighting off all these dark foes.
When they were in the portal world, Euron became completely like confused when Rand was treating him like an equal, and Rand almost had to step into that lordship role for Euron to feel comfortable that someone is taking charge and knows what to do. And that was already the beginning of him sort of, you know, looking to Rand to behave in the way that a lord does to a servant.
Now, how does, and while I'm even at this, and let's just quickly tackle this one.
Tangent time.
Where is he from? What is his connection with Cairhien? Like, is he...
He's from Shinar.
He's from Shinar, but he knows all about the Great Game. He's got a good finger in the pie with it. Did he originate from there? Did he have a stint there? Maybe
He did do a stint there. He's been to the Foregate. They mentioned that when they are traveling towards Cairhien, or
he's done the
maybe even when they got there. But I had the same thought, really. Like, he is very clued up and is actually pretty sharp with the game itself. Like, he can read the things and preempt what people are going to make of them. Like when he's talking to Rand about burning those invites and stuff.
The first invites and that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digressed. So, pacing up and down, Rand is frustrated. They're obviously thinking about the events. Fireworks going off at the... what are they called now?
With the punks.
the punks. Yes. No news apparently have come out from them. Still, even when shit goes wrong inside their quarters, it doesn't make the outside world. That's how secretive they are. What are they called now? My head's gone all
The
blank.
Illuminators.
Illuminators. Duh.
Only a dark friend would forget that.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah, no.
Yes, I mean,
Busted.
no.
The Illuminators, yeah. So anyway, eventually Rand and Loel is about to leave the room and go on their daily walk up to the Gate to try and see who pulled in and if Ingtar has arrived. But just before that, they get a knock on the door, and the innkeeper is standing there, all giddy as a schoolgirl. We're holding another tray with 2 invites. And Rand has now become quite accustomed to just flicking them into the fireplace without opening them. And they do not specify exactly how many he's flicked into fire, but there's quite a few. He's flicked probably the better part of 13, 14, maybe 15, if not 20.
On one day, wasn't there 6?
Yeah,
like they mentioned, like a whole bunch that he threw in the fire at one time.
Yeah, he's been. I think there's spies sitting in the common room now, just waiting to see who's the next house. It's like there's probably gambling going on this.
I was about to say, at this point, the common room is probably just spies.
Yes.
Like every single person in the common room. I mean, we'll get to that now when Rand leaves as well. Like everyone shuts up when he walks through the common room and he walks out.
Ooh,
and then,
is he
like,
going to chuck
conversation
these
starts
in the
again.
fire? The guys are probably playing gambling on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as giddy as the innkeeper is there, he gets them, and then Hurin shits himself, short of shitting himself. This is now from Bathrain.
Here we go.
Jody, that took Jody a second because
what the fuck is
couldn't
he talking
actually
about?
work it back.
Barthanes.
Barthanes, Bartholomew.
Is it Barthanes, Joe? Because I always
Yes.
call him Barthanes.
I googled this. I still have the tab open because I was
Amazing.
thinking, is it Barthanes or do they say it like the Spanish? Barthanes. Hey.
Barthanes.
Okay.
Anyway, that guy and the king guy. So the king guy,
Cairhien.
We call him Bart.
we'll call him Bart and G-Man. The 2 of them.
cool.
This is now the upper tier. There's no more invites other than this coming. And let's be honest, Rand has already met the Amerlin seat. So he's had that high invite. He's already met the other kings of Andor. And yep, I mean, this is kind of the highest tier that it gets into that short people shitty. So he's pretty much ready to chuck them in the fire as well. And it's to the disgust of her. And like, this is where his whole game is like, if you do that, you're dead. Like there's just no, that's like the level you don't cross. All these lower houses sees you chucking them into the fire as you've got a bigger game to play and they're not part of it. However, when you do the same thing with the highest houses, then they all call your bluff and they'll all make a move on you. So you've got to really now just so he makes the decision, you know what? Let's give it time. I'll stick them in my pocket and I won't even open them up. And he does this in the common room, sort of looks at them in a dead quiet common room when he leaves and just sticks them in his pocket without opening. Sort of that will buy me a day or 2. So
everybody's minds implode.
Blown.
All the spies.
Okay.
What?
No reading, no nothing. Spies, all bets are off. Everyone lost their money. So Huron takes guard. He is watching over the chest, and Rand and Loyal heads to the Gate to go and see the guard with the registry to have who's come into the city. Again, he does the same spiel, like, stop playing around with me. I've been here for the last so many days. For the last week, I've come here every morning to ask you the exact same question. So please don't. And again, asking if Celine's there. And no, I don't know her house.
He's checking if Ingtar has arrived.
Yeah,
he asks him
again,
every day.
Ingtar, yes, every day Ingtar and Celine.
Yes.
So he decides, okay, bugger that, and him and Loyal hit the road back to the inn when they see that there's a fire. And there's a fire smoke coming from very close to the inn. Mm-hmm. And when they get closer, they realize that it's like, okay, this is really close to the inn. And then they get there and the inn's on fire. So they get a progression of men and women all. This is a big inn because it's not like the inn's on fire and everyone's outside and there goes the pub type of thing. They're still managing to pull furniture out and the innkeeper still shouting commands like, don't scratch that table and blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, there's a chain of men pulling buckets or buckets being handed through to douse the fire or trying to extinguish the fire. And Rand sort of shouts, where's Hurin? Where's Hurin? And no one's seen him. So he just darts a beeline straight in, and Loyal is with him. And he's like, no, you stay outside. If you come in, then, let me just do it. So it's like, Rand, how are you going to pull Hurin out and the chest? And he's like, oh, yeah. But thinking that they said it out loud, it's like, I would not want my books to burn. So it's like, oh, sharp. Loyal's thinking on his feet. So they get into the room, and Rand sees Hurin is on the floor and grabs him, and Loyal sees the chest is gone, and he shouts out, no, the chest is gone, and Hurin's got a plum-sized knob on his head, so he got Bliksem on the head. And at the same time that Rand grabs him, he also realizes that, oh shit, maybe I should grab the banner. And at a sideline, like, maybe I should let the cursed banner burn. But then he does grab the banner and the last few things, including Thom's flute, which is pretty cool. And he grabs the saddlebags, or the saddlebags that had these objects in, and the flute and that, and grabs Hurin, and they all duck outside, getting splashed with water as they go in and out. And as they hit the pavement, and he's screaming for a healer and a wise woman, a wisdom at first. Everyone's like, her? What's a wisdom? And it's like a wise woman, and then like a herb woman. A woman that uses herbs to fix people. Get the fucking woman.
A person fixer.
The person fixer. And I don't even recall what the wise woman was called there.
A reader.
A reader. The fuck? A reader? It's like, I'm not looking for a librarian. I'm looking for a healer. So they call for the reader, and as he looks up from this, he looks straight into Matt's face. And there they are. Ingtar
Surprise.
and Varen and Perrin. Perrin with his yellow eyes. Matt looking sick. Matt looking like the machinist. That's the only picture I get there. And to his surprise, Varen. So there we go. We've got the guys back in town. The horn and the dagger is gone. And the last thing that Rand screams at them is like, you are late. I had it. You're late.
Like by minutes.
But he's not angry. He starts laughing.
Like crazily.
Yeah. He sits on the ground all covered in soot, and he's just laughing his head off going, fuck, you guys are just too late. Like they just took the horn. We lost it.
Not really helping his going insane image.
No.
Giggling in the suit outside of fire.
No, he's laying some solid groundwork.
Oh, yeah.
So, Joe, what did you get from that one?
I think he covered most of it. I don't really have nothing to add to that.
My first note was also really like you were saying that Hurin is very sharp with Daes Dae'mar. Without him, Rand would be absolutely fucking lost. Like Rand doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But then at the same time, Rand's idea that he comes up with, because they basically go, okay, cool, well, I'll open both, or I'll open one, and Hurin's like, no, well, if you do that, blah 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 blah, I'll burn both. No, you can't do that because blah, blah. And Rand then comes up with the idea, okay, I won't open either of them, and I'll make a point of not opening them in front of everyone in the common room that he knows is going to report back, and then I'm going to stick them in my pocket, I'm going to walk off, and that should buy us another couple of days, hopefully until Ingtar arrives, because Barthanes and Goldrion, G-Man and Bart wouldn't send him any more invites because they've already sent invites. So he could sit on those for a little while without responding to either of them. I thought that was pretty sharp.
That was masterful. I am, and I said it when we started and we got to Daes Dae'mar. Yeah. I'm in it for this time. Like, I'm not going to be sort of, I want to get this manipulation game that has a rule set. Like,
yes.
And we'll get to it again in the later chapters. Like, I'm going to fall back on this the whole time. Like, how this rule set even dictates when you're allowed to break into a conversation and when you're allowed to speak to someone. You have to stand alone. Like, okay, I invite the conversation now. I'm standing alone. But when I'm with one of my partners, friends, colleagues, like, no, there's no time now to break into the conversation. Like, we're plotting now. Don't come and mix. We're plotting about you, but when someone steps away, you can come and break in and they like ask me about my plotting.
Yeah, we're talking about you, not to you.
Yeah.
I also thought it was cool. Like, I can't remember exactly what the context for this was anymore, but when they're in the room, they're busy talking about Fane being out there with a bunch of Trollocs, like, and Rand's talking about maybe going back out to go find Ingtar. Rand is actually considering like how he might actually deal with 10 Trollocs. And we're like before the end of book 2, and Rand is already going, it'll be hard, but I can,
That's doable.
Okay, what are my options? How can I do this? And that is like, if you cast your mind back to Winter Night, which was just like
Chapter 6, Book 1.
terrifying for Rand. Now he's going, I can take 10, maybe. I mean, I might die, but 10, it's a fair fight.
Yeah. 10 Trollocs versus 1 Rand.
Our young Rand is growing in confidence.
He sure is.
And skill.
When Rand approaches the guardhouse, he spots a man someone in what could be Shinaran clothing dart back into the crowd.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I think it was Uno heading for the pub. Like, he was just so thirsty after being on the road for so long, and they were left in the foregate. And he didn't dart. He was running for the closest inn to get pissed.
I have a different theory, which is...
Unsurprisingly.
It's Mo and Villy's theory off round 4. Could it have been Fane?
But why would Fane be in... no. Fane was already there, I think.
He has a bunch of Shinaran dark friends with him that he is routinely killing and feeding to the Trollocs. He had been an absolute mess when he arrived in Faldara.
No, you know why it can't be Fane?
Why?
Because at that very same time, the Dark Friends was already stealing the horn and the chest from the inn.
Well, maybe not exactly then.
And they took it to Fane at the Waygate. I'm getting ahead of myself. But no, I can't say it's Fane.
I think it's either Fane or one of his dark friends. Because it's at this point when Rand has walked away from the inn, someone has sent word to Fane, they've left, this is where they are, now set fire to the inn and go steal the horn.
Plausible.
Because remember, I mean, the inn's not on fire yet. The dark friends haven't attacked. It's when they're on their way back from the guardhouse they notice the fire.
Yes, so this was on their way before they get to the guardhouse that he spotted that.
They've
I
just
thought it
left
like maybe
inn.
that was just like a Shinarian soldier, and that's why I said Uno darting to the bar.
That is in no ways necessary to be conveyed. It adds nothing to the story. I think, and I will defend this position to the death.
Or eat your words on the next one.
No, I think
the next podcast.
Yeah. I think that is where someone doesn't want Rand to know that they were watching him, and they darted off knowing where Rand was in that moment. And that might be the information they needed. I mean, why they wouldn't have someone just standing outside the inn?
I've always had the impression that Fane at that point in time was already in the city walls.
I mean, in the city, with this guy that he saw running away, could have been in the foregate. I mean, he's at the guardhouse at the border between the city walls and the foregate. There's still a lot of foregate outside of that gate. There's a lot going on around that guardhouse. Yes. But I didn't know why that would have been mentioned at all.
No, it makes
a throwaway
sense
line
now.
like
It's a
that
throwaway line,
is supposed to be a crumb for something. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, does Fane go and get the chest himself? Is that something he would leave
not.
to his minions, or is it too important? Because, I mean, he sleeps next to it, puts the dagger on top of it. Like, he's very protective. Maybe he went to the inn to go and make sure that it's done properly.
Maybe he oversees the whole thing. I mean, would he be dressed in Shinaran clothing? The reason my mind went to Fane is because Fane would always know sort of how to get to Rand because he can sense him. And I know that when he arrived in Faldara, he was in these beggar's clothes that he'd been running in and, shitting himself in. And like he was an absolute mess. So they cleaned him up and they put him in clothes in Faldara in Shinar. So he would be dressed in Shinaran clothes.
You'd think that the guy would actually get something decent to wear at this stage.
I think his mind is on other things.
Totally. He probably doesn't think about what he's wearing at all. I was also surprised, well, not surprised, but I was wondering why Kildevwin was avoiding Rand.
He's a dick. End of story.
I never thought of him as a dick. He's definitely in the game, and he's busy, reporting to Galdrian or someone. I'm assuming Galdrian because he's a royal guard or, soldier that was at the statue excavation and was bringing the other soldiers back for, change of guard and that sort of thing. He's definitely playing the game because he was trying to get information out of Rand, and people already know that Rand was there at the Nine Rings, close to the Kudenkarl. So, he's already fed information back. But I just don't know why he wouldn't want Rand to know he was there. Maybe he was just, it could be mundane. He was just tired of Rand asking the same questions every day.
Yeah. It's like, fuck this guy again. Shrink.
Yeah.
Sneak away.
And then the last one I had was Rand chooses to save the banner. I think Moiraine, at some point, Rand has the thought that Moiraine said to him, it's going to save his life, or it could save his life.
That's the same thing he said to himself in that moment, thinking I should leave it to burn. But then Moiraine said, it's going to save your life. And at the same time, he said, Aes Sedai, don't lie.
And I can't remember for the life of me how that dragon banner factors into his journey and how it saves his life. So that's one of those ones I want to put a pin in. And when it happens, we can go, aha, Moiraine was right. And it was a good thing he saved that banner from that burning building.
It's probably inflammable as well. So
I thought the same thing.
That thing's not going to burn.
Yeah, it's because they say it's like not cloth either.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. Then again, it might be plastic. Maybe it burns really well. Cellophane banner. Okay, I promise. That's it from that chapter for me.
All right. That's more than I was bargaining on, so that's fine by me.
Okay, well, you can count on me for that. All right, then. Chapter 31 is On the Scent. Jody.
Footprints in the air. On the scent. Yes, speaking of scent, we'll get into that. Anyway, so this is... I'm picking up where Vili left off there. Verin is there. Rand is there, so... Rand, Hurin, and Loyal are reunited with Ingtar's group. Verin heals them. He feels like he's being splashed with cold water. You know the drill.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all very curious as to how Rand and his company got ahead of them to reach Cairhien. There you go.
Got it.
Whew! That took it out of me.
Pause for a break.
Pause for a break. Let's hit the beers. So that's but his mum to the word. He's not giving anything away just at this point because he's surprised that Verin's there as well, as he didn't know that she was with them. So anyway, Verin found them by threatening that guardhouse tool, as I have noted his name, and we can't think of what he's called. She says, Matt says, like, yeah, or Perrin, I can't remember who, says, she whispered in his ear and showed him the Aes Sedai ring, and he was very cooperative. So what did she whisper to him? Because this is interesting to me, because she is free of the oaths. She could have just whispered in his ear, I'm going to fucking kill you if you don't tell me where this guy is. And it would have been fine.
I will flay you alive.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, maybe she whispered because she didn't want anyone else to know that she can lie. She may just have straight up lied to him.
Okay, what is the biggest threat that an Aes Sedai can give a man? If you don't fucking get this sorted right now, I'll tell everyone you can channel, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah. I'm sure she used motherfucker at the end of her sentence as well.
It sounds like
just
Verin.
to punctuate. Typical Verin. She's got a dirty mouth.
Verin Uno.
No. Peas in a pod. So Rand has to explain to Matt and Ingtar that, dude, I had your dagger, I had the horn in my hands, but you literally just missed it by minutes. Matt's pretty chill about it. He's like, well, I had already thought I'd lost it, so still lost. Nothing's changed. But Ingtar is not happy. He's not handling it really well. He hits his palm with his fist. Oh, the anger. Yeah. So anyway, Matt tells Rand that they'll find it easily now that they've got two sniffers. Because hey, Perrin's a sniffer as well. And Perrin and Rand look at each other, and Rand thinks sniffer, and Perrin thinks shadow killer. And I'm thinking, oh, you lose, Perrin. Sniffer.
Oh, fuck, that's great. I have so much to say about that exchange there.
That little exchange. They look kind of like looking at each other. You just imagine them cocking each other's their heads like, Sniffer? Shadow Healer?
And squinting their eyes.
Yeah, looking at each other all weirdly. Anyway, as their inn is currently burning to the ground and they need some place private to chat, Verin leads them to an inn that she knows, the Great Tree. She stayed here in this city before. So even as they're walking to this inn, Hurin says he can smell their trail. So it might not last very long, but like, there's no need to worry. It's gone, but we can still follow them. You know, we're getting close. And this is at this point when they're walking back, Rand immediately takes charge. He's questioning Hurin. Okay, so you can smell them. How long do you think you'll be able to? Okay, go home, get some rest. In the morning, or like later on when we're rested, we'll take this. And he starts making plans and giving orders, and everybody's just staring at him. And then realizes, oh shit, I'm not in charge anymore. Ingtar's back, and there's an Aes Sedai. But they're all just looking at him, and he's like, no, sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm just so used to, being without you guys. I just took charge. And they're like, it's fine. Okay, cool. But Ingtar's like, yeah, I can see why Lord Anglemar made you my second in command and why Moraine insisted,
Yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah,
So
that's a cool moment.
That's a cool moment. Yeah. He just slips into that leadership role so easily. So yeah, they're back at the inn. So after Rand has a bath and puts on some clean clothes because he's filthy dirty, and then opens up his saddlebags only to find more fancy coats in there that he's like, oh shit, yeah, right. I don't have anything nondescript. So his red coat is all fucked up. It needs to be cleaned. So he chooses the black one to match his mood, apparently. What is the color of the other coat? Is it white?
Blue, I think.
I think it was... Fuck, no, I don't know.
No, I don't know. Because whatever the third coat was, he's not wearing it. He's got the black coat
I am
with the herons, the silver herons.
The black one with the silver stitching.
Yes.
Maybe because I'm thinking of the Ashaman and
little foreshadowing there.
Vibe going. Yeah,
and he's got the silver herons on the collar, like they later put on the silver sword and the gold dragon. Yeah, anyway, and then he finds the letters from Selene, from the old coat, I imagine. The letters from Selene and the letters from the king, from G-Man and Bart. And he starts thinking and brooding a little bit over Selene. But then, I mean, at one point, he even thinks he smells her in the room and spins around. She's like probably there. I wouldn't, like, she could have just traveled.
I took the same note, Joe.
Yeah. She's probably just, hiding in the cupboard or something. But then he just crumples them up and throws them away. And I think this is the moment now where he kind of cuts ties with her.
I've got a note there.
What?
Oh, here we go.
Come on.
Comes a
Man in
crazy
the red
theory.
shirt.
No. It's not man and plus man in the red shirt is not a conspiracy theory. That's still right up there. But that's not what this is about. When Verin, and this is the first time that there's an Aes Sedai around him that can probe and heal since the whole meeting of Selene. When she grabs him and he feels like a bucket of water is thrown over him, but just the feeling, like, which obviously uses the power to check him out and sees everything's okay. I hold the thought that Selene had some sort of voodoo going on with him.
The pseudo compulsion.
Yeah, type of compulsion that was going on the whole time. And after this whole Verin episode, he could so easily take those letters and chuck them into the fireplace. Didn't he light them on fire?
Yes.
And let them burn until it almost burned his hand and then chucked it in the dead fireplace.
That's right.
And Selene would have known that compulsion was broken. So maybe that's why he could smell her, because she's like, oh shit, what's happening? Yeah. And he's just like, okay, I got a dart. This is not going to work. But you only feel like a lot of times they get probed. Like Moraine did it with him every night. And it was not the same feeling. It was something different. Like, I think Verin found something
Cleansed
and said,
him.
Oh shit, there's a little bit of evil taint on him. Like whatever it is, maybe it was a dagger or whatever. And she just decided to, okay, whoop. Let's up your health bars.
Yeah. I don't think she noticed that specifically. Just she healed him, and in the healing, like she healed everything, like a
Yeah, but
general blanket healing.
Just a general blanket stimpak or
purge of any
sin or
anything foreign. I also thought that maybe the letters had some kind of quality, like the Tavalon coins. That Moiraine gave the boys.
He held on to it.
Like, because he'd been holding on to them the whole time. I thought that maybe she had imbued them with some kind of ward or.
But he was like swooning over those letters in the past.
He was.
Yeah, he was like reading them like please, my Celine, come back to me. And now he's just like, after Perrin locked up and laid hands on him, he's just lighting fire to them and chucking them away. Like,
maybe he's just super into Perrin now.
Maybe.
Oh man, now you spoiled it. No. Like Perrin's cool and all, but they don't paint it that way.
No, really, that's pretty cool. I like that idea.
That does make sense. I had never thought of that. This is rivaling your red coat theory, your red shirt theory. As
I'm still reading for more red coat like niblets. I'm going back to that chapter.
Niblets, niblets, giblets, gizzards.
Love a niblet.
What?
All right, Joe. Where were we now?
I don't know. You keep on interrupting me. Oh, yes, he burnt the letters. Celine's letters. Doesn't burn the King's, the G-Man, and the Bart letters. He keeps on to those. But then he heads down to the private dining room that Perrin has procured so that they can have a little private chat again. Everyone is there, except, of course, for the soldiers, the lancers, the common folk. And Huron, of course, isn't there because he's decided after his healing, he's fine. He's going scouting. So he's buggered off. But we've got Loyal, we've got Perrin, Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Ingtar in the room there. And this is the umpteenth time that they have been in a private dining room with an Aes Sedai over to just little under 2 books. This is just the thing they do. Okay, serious meeting time. We need a private dining room or a library or a library. That'll do as well. So, yeah, they're going to make a plan. Rand tells them about the portal stones eventually. I think Ingtar mentions it, Perrin brings it up again, and Perrin tries to, he sees how uncomfortable Rand is and tries to, steer the conversation another way. Rand appreciates it. This little moment of, we're still friends, even though we're changing as much as we are. But eventually Rand's like, no, it's cool. I'll tell them the story. And he gives them the whole story about the journey and the portal stones and meeting Celine and blah, 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 blah. And that's how they got ahead of them. You guys know the story, listeners as well. Matt, again, looks like shit, as Vili said earlier. He's acting fine. He's very high in spirits, but he looks like the machinist. If you haven't seen that movie, just go Google it. But he's shoveling food into his mouth like it's his last meal. He looks like he's about to die. Perrin increasingly, this is when the food comes, Perrin is increasingly wolfish. He smells the lamb coming down the hallway, but he's already thinking, it's overcooked. He'd rather have some raw red meat. So yeah, like as we know, we'll meet that other guy in the town that's all locked up that went full wolf, didn't rein it in. So he's already turning into very wolfish kind of guy. But then just after they finish their meal, Huron arrives as well to say that he's found the Dark Friend's lair. And it's Barthanes' manor. And everybody's like, oh, dun, dun, dun. Barthanes. His whole house smells like Trollocs. Not a good sign. So we have some Dark Friend conspiracy theories floating around now. Perrin even mentions, because everybody's surprised, like, Barthanes? And Perrin's like, yeah, like the pool of the Dark Lord attracts the high and mighty as well as the low. And Ingtar's like, I don't want to hear that shit. Yeah. We know all about you, dude. So they start formulating.
She knows as well.
She knows.
Yeah, she's also a Dark Friend.
But she might not know that he's a Dark Friend. They don't know.
No. I mean that she also knows from first-hand experience the level of nobility and stuff that are also drawn into.
Yes. Okay. She speaks from experience. Okay. I thought you meant that she knows that Ingtar is a Dark Friend. All right. No, but no.
Don't think
Possibly,
so.
But unlikely.
There's another point later that I will bring that up again.
We'll get there. So they start formulating a plan. They're trying to get into this manor house. So how are they going to get in there? And Huron's like, you'd need 200 men to storm the place and get out alive again. So that plan is out the window. So they think about involving the king. Like, why don't we tell the king that Barthanes is a dark friend? And Varen's like, yeah, cool. He'll move on that with no evidence whatsoever, but then he'll have the horn, and there's no way he's going to give the horn back to us. So Varen starts thinking, like, we need to find a way inside to get around and chat to him and make a plan. And the entire time she's talking, Huron is sitting in his chair, excitedly rocking back and forth with a big grin on his face. Eventually, she's like, what, Huron? And he's like, Rand's already got an invite from him. Everybody looks at Rand. He's like, oh, yes.
The fuck you been doing, Rand?
Like, Lord Rand, I have a personal invite to his manor in my pocket, alongside the one from the king. The king as well. If you guys don't know me by now, you will never, ever, ever know me. So Rand...
just before we go on, just on that, every time Rand is on his own little mission, he ends up with kings and fucking in the falls off walls.
The Forsaken kings.
The kings. It just always gets into shit. And the Aes Sedai comes back into his life. It's like, what the fuck?
What did you do? Nothing. It's all the pattern. It's all the pattern's fault.
Taviran, man. Taviran.
Sorry, Jody.
No worries. Please. I feel the same as you do. So yeah, he's got I wrote, it's not just a letter from the king, it's in big bold letters, the fucking king, which later on Varen just throws in the fire. She's like, oh, fuck that guy. We've got what we need, we don't need him. But she does say the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, like, we have everything we need right here. So brilliant. That helps us a lot. Rand's like trying to tell them, like, because they ask him, like, how the hell did you get these letters? And he's like, I did nothing. I swear to God, I did nothing. I tried not to play this game, but this is just the way. Like, by not playing it, he played it so well. Rand protests as well. They say, okay, fine, we'll go with you, and you've got to take the invite, and we'll go to this party that he's having tomorrow night, you know? And Rand's like, no ways. They're never going to buy that this shepherd is a lord. And Ingtar looks at him again, disbelievingly, like, you've tried to tell us you're a shepherd 100 times before, but we're not buying that anymore. Nobody's buying it. Not even his friends are buying it anymore. Ingtar is very agitated, of course, about the horn, and he's worrying that, like, waiting a whole day, they're going to lose it again. You know, they're going to be far ahead. Little does he know, they've already fucked off with the horn. They're already on the other side of the world. But we'll get there. So they talk about the statue as well outside the city, because that's where the conflict came with the king as well and Barthanes. And Varen explains that it's part of the Age of Legends. It's the most powerful Sangreal ever produced, and that one's for men. And so Rand's like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That explains what I felt. And she mentions the other one for women on Tremelking. And she also mentions that, like, there's no need to worry about using these things. Everybody's like, well, what the fuck? What if Logain had found that thing and used it, you know? Like, she's like, no, it has to be used in conjunction with a woman, so don't worry about it. And there's so few women on this planet that could even channel that much of the power. She mentions the Amaryllis Seat, Moraine, Elida, and 3 more who are in training. So there's only 3 known Aes Sedai, and the other 3 just came in, like, last week.
Yeah,
so we know who those 3 are. And so the chapter ends with Rand challenging Varen, because he's again not happy to be entangled with Aes Sedai. He just wants to get rid of them, but he realizes he needs her help to get the horn back and the dagger back. So he even calls her Varen, doesn't call her Varen Sedai, doesn't show her any kind of respect. And he says, okay, I'll accept your help. We'll find the dagger, we'll find the horn, and then we're done. We're done with Aes Sedai. I'm done with this shit. And no, dude, not at all. And that's how the chapter
He keeps
ends.
saying that to himself. He's trying to convince himself.
Yeah, he's convincing no one.
No.
So that's it. That's how it ends.
Okay.
Oh, I've got a lot to unpack there.
Unpack it, Villy.
Rand and Perrin and their inner sort of thoughts, and, like you said, sort of cocking head at each other, Shadow Killer and
Sniffer.
That Perrin is very sort of in awe that the wolves see Rand so highly. Like how he moved, what he's done, giving him the name Shadow Killer. Like, the wolves already see Rand as, whoa, this is the guy. And that sort of, in Perrin's mind, is now sort of a complete different swing around from Because if we remember, when they left Thaldara together, that Rand couldn't even ride with him. The reason he slept separately was because they wouldn't sit with him. And now all of a sudden they've met up and all this information has come to Perrin. Well, nothing has really changed for Matt. Matt is still giving him chirps about what he's up to and all the rest. But Perrin has kind of all of a sudden realized, like, holy shit, the wolves see this in him.
Yeah, this chapter's from Perrin's point of view.
Yeah.
So you get all of his inner monologue and how he's thinking about Rand and like the stuff that the wolves have passed on.
He says Shadow Killer out loud. And that's why Rand
Yes.
looks at him. He doesn't realize.
Shadow Killer.
And Rand's like, what the fuck?
What?
Shadow Killer?
That's the second time you've called me that.
Yes. And also there's a thing about the wolves that's important, because earlier on, remember when they met the Aiel in the Valley of Death almost? The wolves said, yes, there's humans, but they don't care or know the difference between any humans. They don't give a shit, but they know Rand, and they called him.
They've singled him out.
Yes.
Yeah, they've given him a
So
name.
it's important.
Yeah. I was wondering if Perrin had sort of put this together based on the information that he's been given about the story of them getting the horn and all that sort of stuff, or did the wolves actually like pass a scent on to Perrin that he is also capable of getting from Rand, like, or is it a bit of both? A bit of column A, a bit of column B.
Maybe a bit of both. I can't
Probably
recall that they passed the scent on or anything specific.
I just know that they can.
They can, yeah.
Perrin sends them the scent of Paden Fane, and like they can send scents to each other.
Yeah, that for me, that stood out very, very boldly.
It's very cool. Shadow Killer is also a great name.
Yeah, fantastic name. But yeah, Matt is still sort of his little Lord Rand, and it's so funny what's going to come still, but it's not to get ahead of ourselves, which I like to do. And the other thing for me is Varen's comments after Rand addresses her as Varen, and they plan, or they hatch this plan to get into Bart's jaw for a tea party. And she's like, yeah, well, if you speak to everyone there like you speak to me, you'll do just fine as a lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You arrogant prick.
Yes.
What
did you get, Mo?
I have a couple notes here. One of them was, was Lanfear in the room with him when he had the letters? Are the letters like Moraine's coins? A lot of stuff we've already discussed. Ingtar mentions another when he says if they had to go to Galdrian with the information that Barthanes is a dark friend, Galdrian would shower them with money and praise, and but as soon as they try to go anywhere with a horn or something, he'd have them killed. But it just stood out to me as another person talking about G-Man's propensity for just spending lavishly, like he's always splashing money around. And I think that becomes a thing later where, he's basically bankrupted the country. And yeah, I just love the fact that Rand is so comfortable around Varen and Ingtar. Like originally, like taking charge, like just in that moment saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it's a good plan as well, like everything he says makes sense.
Yeah.
And the fact that Ingtar then backs him up and says, look, Agelmar and Moraine, they were right. I mean, I'm not offended at all. And then, just also took a note of the fact that Moraine apparently is much stronger in the power than I had ever thought before. I always thought of Moraine as just like another one of the Aes Sedai. But the fact that Varen singles her out along with Swan and with Elida, those three big players of the current Aes Sedai seem to be the three strongest channelers within the ranks of the Aes Sedai. If Varen thinks they are the only ones that can use the Cúdan Call, then they must be the three most powerful.
So stoked it's not Leandrin.
Yes, but I mean, Elida, it's not great.
Elida, we know we need a power play on that side, but it's not Leandrin.
And I just like how Varen just sort of like vaguely says, and three that are still in training, and those are Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve. Yeah.
I think I didn't realize that she was that powerful, like Cúdan Call powerful, but she was obviously very strong. I mean, she's still alive. Also brings me to the point, where the fuck is she right now? Moraine.
She's traveling from Van Dien and Adelaus's farm in Candor.
Yes. To where?
They never say.
They never say.
Yeah, that's my question. Where the fuck is she? Like the last time we saw her, she survived that attack from the Drakkar. And now...
She might be heading to Thom and Head.
Yes. She's going to take a while.
Because that's when she pieced together like what we think Van Dien was dropping. The name of that chapter was called Watchers. It's the chapter in which Van Dien says, it's the Watchers over the waves. Van Dien does not say what the Watchers were supposed to be watching for, Jody, and what they ended up watching for.
We've covered this.
But she calls for a pen and paper and then has to leave immediately. So she's probably letting Swan or someone know that she thinks something is going to go down on Thom and Head, and my assumption is that she would be heading down there, just like she did for the Eye of the World when she saw all these signs pointing in that direction. Didn't know what was going to happen there, just had to make sure that the pieces were in play. So who knows?
Yeah.
Villy knows. I don't.
Goes up. I'm on chapter 41 now, and she still hasn't reappeared. So,
Does she show up at the end of the book, Will? Can't remember.
No.
Excellent.
No.
if she's traveling on foot to Thom and Head, she's going to take months from where she is.
It's probably why she's rushing.
Like, she doesn't know about the Waygates or portal stones.
I can't remember if she rocked up there. I think she might have, or she might not have.
Thanks for clearing that up, Billy.
That's
That covers all the bases. Check.
yeah. Check.
My answer is yes or no. Anyway, so I think that's everything for this chapter.
Cool.
Billy, you said you got a lot to dish on. Is that everything? I don't want to cut you off.
No, that was all I needed to dish on. That was a lot. Like, I mean, come on.
Oh, okay.
Rand and Perrin, that is a big relationship there. That's all of a sudden like, because I mean, it's a big thing when you're okay. Imagine your three best mates, and you've been growing up all into your teenage years, and you're in your early 20s, and all of a sudden you are burdened with the responsibility of being the dragon reborn. And you're trying to save their lives by being a dick to them so that they would leave you. And for one of them to realize, like, truly, like, this is real. Like, this is, it's a big part of that character development around the relationship between Rand, Matt, and Perrin. Because they're always going to have some form or part to play. All three of them is such an integral part in the story. There's always going to be that same thing, but they always have to be on the same page. And Matt's not quite there yet. I think Matt only gets onto the same page quite a bit later in the next book, once he's healed. But this is Perrin sort of like saying that moment, like, shit, this that is said to us that he can channel, and the wolves recognizing him. They've got something different. Like, that speaks more to him than the words that any other human spoke to him. Like, I mean,
well, including Rand. When Rand told Matt and Perrin that he can channel, they both basically told him, well,
good luck,
get out
buddy.
of here.
Yeah.
You go be somewhere where you're not going to hurt anyone else around you. So when I read this, I was relieved to see Perrin still showing some level of loyalty and commitment to Rand and his well-being, and sort of being, because even in the conversations, like Jody was saying, like, he tries to steer them away from how the portal stones were used. Rand sort of fobs it off on Celine having done it. But Perrin is still very much looking out for Rand. And in these couple chapters now, there's also like when they say, okay, cool, we're going to go do this thing. When Rand says, I'm going to go to Thom and Head, Perrin's like, well, I guess I'm going too. Matt has to go because of the dagger. And Perrin says, okay, cool, I'll go too. Perrin didn't have to go.
Yeah.
You know, Perrin is going purely out of loyalty. Which is reassuring after that scene where Rand tells them both, when he's got the banner out while they were still traveling with Utar, when he tells them that he can channel, I got the sense that they were very much like, well, get out of here. To the point where, I mean, we were openly discussing, you know, whether they were ever really good friends or not. Were they just kids that sort of were friends by default because they grew up in a small town?
No, we had a full discussion, and I was on board with the fact that no, these are hombres. They are mates. They are thick as thieves.
Yeah, maybe that initial reaction was just like a knee jerk sort of, what, you can channel, get the fuck away from me. And the more Rand doesn't kill them, the closer they become again.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just that stood out for me completely.
It's very important for their relationship that they, you know, do stick up for each other, and it was very reassuring for a reader, because they do clash later in the books.
Of course,
it's a famous scene where Rand, you know, doesn't he chase Perrin off basically, Like he knows he has to make Perrin do something. I don't know.
Spend 2 books looking for Fael. There you go. That's what you got to do.
Go waste time.
Go bore the shit out of our readers, please.
All right, let's kick on. Chapter 32 is called Dangerous Words. So we join Rand, Perrin, Mat, Euron, Ingtar, and Loyal as they arrive at Barthanes' manor with an honor guard of 10 Shinarans, including Uno. Mat is posing as Rand's manservant, and Euron is posing as Ingtar's.
Mat is so happy.
Throughout this chapter, he hates it. He hates it. Can't stop bitching about it. And then they brought Loyal because he would be a sought-after guest, So Perrin thought, like, Rand showing up with a lord from Shinar and an Aes Sedai and an Ogier would really make a big impact. But they bring Euron specifically so that he can try and sniff out the Trollocs and the Dark Friends, and Mat so that he can sense the dagger if it's nearby. And poor old Perrin is just left by the wayside. No, you stay at home. You sit this one out, buddy. You're on the bench.
No wolves in the manor, mate.
No. So when they get to the front door, Rand introduces himself as Lord Rand of House Althor, and you can just tell that he hates it. Like, he doesn't want to do this at all. But he also introduces Perrin, Ingtar, Loyal, and his guests, and it causes quite a stir, as they would have expected. So when they are announced, like, everybody's looking, and it sort of raises eyebrows everywhere. So inside the manor, there's partygoers everywhere, and almost all the rooms have entertainers of some description, gleemen. There's a court bard who seems to look down on all the gleemen, despite the fact that he is basically a gleeman without the patchy cloak. And yeah, they draw every eye when they're announced in the Great Hall. And then Barthanes comes over and he introduces himself, telling Rand that, you've caused quite a stir in Cairhien. I'm going to sound like a text-to-speech robot every time I say that, because I have to stop and think about it before I do. But Barthanes is drawn away, and Perrin and Ingtar sort of drift into the crowd, leaving Mat and Euron to go down to the sort of servants' quarters, start actually searching the manor for the chest and the dagger. And Loyal and Rand are sort of standing around just looking at what's going on in this party. And Loyal immediately says, Rand, there's a Waygate nearby. I can sense it. So the two of them think about what they're going to do to kill time while Mat and Euron hunt for the horn and the dagger. And Rand reminds Loyal that Perrin said Barthanes could be a dark friend. So peeling off might attract unwarranted violence. Like if they had to go off, if they had to split up and go into rooms looking for stuff themselves, that's an opportunity for them to be accosted by, whatever dark friends for hire Barthanes has in his service. So Loyal walks into the crowd, and others start to sort of just move towards Rand, and to avoid having to have any conversations with anyone, Rand just sort of starts roving the house. Like he's staying in, like the party area, not going off looking for anything, but he is trying to keep moving because, a moving target is harder to hit. And I mean that in a socializing and Daes Dae'mar kind of way, not by an actual archer.
Although you never know.
Yes, you never know.
Could be some red-shirted guy standing behind you at the party.
Yes. And while he's walking, Barthanes appears again beside him, and Rand assumes the cat crosses the courtyard because it's the most arrogant way to walk that he knows.
I love that.
And Perrin had said to him, be arrogant and people will take you for a lord. So he took her at her word and he employed Land's teachings, and he did exactly that. Barthanes starts sort of like, asking a couple of probing questions. He mentions Galdrian to see if Rand is aligned with him at all, to see what Rand's response is. But Rand just shuts that down. And Barthanes says, well, oh, sure. Okay, so you were just in that fly-speck village with a big statue by chance. Little does he know, Rand is like, apart from Mat, king of chance. To Perrin, swirls the pattern around him. But Barthanes makes more inane chit-chat, trying to see what Rand will give away. Just playing the game, like entry-level game here, just asking some probing questions, seeing what he can tease out of Rand. And I took a note here that he mistakes Rand's supreme stubbornness for expert playing of Daes Dae'mar. Like he thinks Rand is being, very, very tactful in his answers when Rand is actually just being stubborn. That's just his thing.
Just his Two Rivers thing.
Yes. Barthena says to Rand that he's young to be bearing a heron-marked blade. It's one of the questions he asks him. And Rand responds with, I'm less than a year old. And Barthenas goes, okay, well, so you're Borderlander trained, you look like an Aiel, you're from Andor, you're nobility, you carry a heron-marked blade. You're about the same age as what Morgase's son Gawain would be, and he actually, entertains the idea that Rand might be Gawain. But Rand just says, "No, dude, you're barking up the wrong tree." He just shuts that down again, displaying his typical stubbornness. And Barthanes leaves again, just saying like, "You've given me a lot to think about." And Rand's going, "What the fuck are you talking about? I've given you nothing." Just showing that Rand is like, he has these moments of brilliance playing Daes Dae'mar, but when he's in the thick of it, he's in the scrum, he doesn't know what's happening around him. So Rand keeps walking and musing on how he's learning that he knows nothing about Daes Dae'mar, and he walks into a room, and there's Thom Merrilin reciting, was it apart from, I think, from The Great Hunt for the Horn. He sees Thom there, obviously thinks, oh, great, Thom, and then immediately realizes, oh, wait, we said we're going to make a clean break, and then reinforces that thought when Thom seems to, pass his gaze over Rand twice without reacting at all, and Rand's like, oh, okay, cool. He did say he wants a clean break, so I'll leave it at that.
I was, at this point, when I was reading this chapter, I was like, Rand, don't engage him. Don't engage him. This is really just going to blow up this whole Daes Dae'mar thing. Like, don't talk to a Glee man. He didn't listen.
And he tries not to in the beginning. Yeah. So, I mean, Thom was obviously faking, right? Thom saw him and he's just purposefully not doing it. I mean, that was my read, right?
Oh, totally.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
Thom knows how to play this game.
He does. Well, he used to. He's a bit rusty, but he is certainly more savvy than Rand, who's an absolute fucking
novice
babe in the woods when it comes to this stuff. So Rand's about to leave the room, and when he is cornered by one, and then two, and then three women who are just putting it all out there, right? Like, I mean, they are coming onto him so hard. The third woman that arrives is slightly older than the other two, but still like quite attractive apparently, and she just, she chirps the other two, to sort of keep quiet. But she is a noteworthy character that we will get back to just now when Thom tells you who she actually is. So when Rand is sort of cornered by these three women, he spots Thom again, and he has just finished playing. So Thom has sort of angrily grabbed a drink. He's like pissed off with the crowd because they're not appreciating what he's doing, and he hates being like a dancing monkey for these nobles who he holds in very, very low regard. So Rand heads over to him to try and get away from these three women. So Rand says to Thom that he knows they agreed on a clean break, but he needed to get away from these three women and their advances. And Thom says that the older one, Brienne Taborwin, the quote is, Brienne Taborwin alone would give you an education such as every man should have at least once in his life if he can live through it. Now, Brienne, she is the woman that later in the books hooks up with Lamgwin, the bouncer at the Queen's Blessing. That's her.
Oh, Jesus.
She's a refugee from Cairhien that makes it to Andor, and she hooks up with Basil Gill, Lamgwin, and the crew from the Queen's Blessing, and Morgase herself, and Linny.
Yes.
When they travel, and they all eventually become,
Perrin's crew, right?
Fail's maids.
Ah, yeah.
Fail has Morgase like tending to her as a maid, and Brienne is there as well. So we meet her here in Barthanes' manor as a very well known noblewoman in Cairhien.
That's a very cool niblet.
That one comes thanks to our number one fan, Adrian.
She gets a shout out every week.
She does, because she sends so much content through, which is so great. I would never remember. I mean, I remember the character that Lamgwin hooks up with, but not her name at all. And I certainly would not have picked that up from this section. So thanks again, Adrian. So Thom then quickly asks why Rand has brought an Aes Sedai with him again, because, last time they spoke, Rand said he was, free of them. And Rand just goes, look, man, she just arrived. She's only just arrived. Since we spoke, she came onto the scene again. But you can see here that Thom's main motivation to help Rand is always Aes Sedai related. Like suddenly, like Thom is talking to Rand again. He's entertaining this conversation. He hasn't just turned Rand right away, but because there's an Aes Sedai in the mix again, there's probably something in the back of Thom's mind like, oh shit, okay, I need to look out for this kid again, because these Aes Sedai, they will ruin your shit.
Yeah, they will ruin your shit indeed.
So Thom offers his help because of this, but Rand actually declines. Rand is staying true to their agreement to have the clean break. And Thom seems almost disappointed. So you can see there's this thread sort of like tugging at Thom the whole time. He said he wanted a clean break, but there is definitely something there. And I really appreciate the fact that he is, he does care about what happens to Rand. And just then, while they're busy talking, Huron appears with the message that Matt, quote unquote, fell and twisted his ankle. And so Rand puts on a lordly show to leave. And Thom remarks that while Rand is playing the game well, because Rand makes the remark like, oh, he's fallen again. I better go sort this out, putting up a bit of an act. And Thom says, okay, you're playing this pretty well. But remember, the Cairhien excel at this game, but it was the White Tower that invented it. So just watch yourself around these Aes Sedai. That's always Thom's theme, right? That's his main through line. And with that, Rand leaves. And that's the end of the chapter.
And that's that.
That poor Rand. He was like a lamb in a slaughterhouse.
To the slaughter,
Just like those women were like actually fighting with each other. Like, oh, you straight up slut. How can you be so straight and up front?
Yeah. This one has the tact of a tavern wench.
A tavern wench. But yeah, Thom's like, oh yeah, no, she'll give you an education that every man should have once in his life.
If he can live through it.
I wonder if Thom's speaking from experience.
I thought the same thing. I wonder if he's been there.
I'm sure he has. This man has been around.
I think he must have, yeah.
I think so too. And I mean, how else would he know that?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of information available at the right price in Cairhien. Yes, this is so hard.
Cape Town.
It is hard.
Cape Town. It's very easy to find info in Cape Town on other people. There's a lot of rumors flying around. He could have just heard it. But I'm going with he's got first-hand experience.
Okay, so chapter 33, I guess.
Yep.
A message from the dark. Billy, take us away.
All right. So Rand skedoodles down. Matt loses his limp. He's still not impressed in being the manservant with a limp. And they meet up with Huron and Loyal. And he's like, I've got the trail. I've got the scent. They're here. I can take you to the lair. Like, this is it. Let's do it. And Rand's like, no, we go. We move now. Like, no one gets called. No one gets nothing. We got to go. At that time, Perrin was talking to a whole bunch of women, apparently. And Ingtar was also cornered.
Ingtar was cornered by a bunch of women. Perrin was talking to Barthanes.
Oh, okay.
Two dark friends chatting.
Two dark friends chatting.
Huron says, she gave me such a look when I came near, I never even tried to tell her.
Yeah. He's breaking the rules of the game. If somebody is chatting, like Vili was saying, you can't just come and butt in.
No.
The game is being played right there.
Yeah.
Especially if they're talking maybe dark friend business.
Potentially. But no high dark friend knows who another high dark. I mean, the rules of dark friend social, everyone is cloaked.
I thought it was interesting that two dark friends were chatting.
Yeah.
It is noteworthy.
So they doing following Huron's nose out into the gardens. And they sort of expecting, is there a gate that's going to lead out that they leave? It's like, no. There's this 50 by 50 span wall, square, very high, locked behind a gate. And they're like, there's no roof on it. So what is this now? And Rand says, give me a handover. And Huron is upset, but Rand just goes, sees nothing on the inside, and makes the leap in. Lands sort of on his legs. And then, true as it is, as Will said, he could feel there's a Waygate. There's the Waygate. This wall is purposefully built to enclose the Waygate.
Actually, the entire manor is purposefully built to enclose that Waygate. It's a new manor that's been built. He built it specifically around that.
Specifically in a piece of forest that in some power move he got off.
A grove.
A grove.
It's an Ogier grove.
And Loyal is not happy about them chopping down the trees. I think that comes up later, whatever.
And when they've snuck out of like a servant's door that Rand had to duck through and Loyal had to like really bend and squeeze through to get through, and they come outside, I picture like the back of a farmhouse, because this is obviously like a servant's interest, right? Like there's probably like a basin outside and like tools and stuff, and then going out towards the garden. They're sneaking out in the dark. There's very little light. And then there's this square walled enclosure in the middle of the garden, because Rand can see beyond the walls the gardens continue. So it's very obvious that this wall is keeping something in or people out.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously they climb in.
Yeah, it is the only thing to do. I mean, the noses point, it's in there. Both of them feeling that the power's in there. So anyway, they land on the inside there. And what does Rand do? Well, of course, we're going to open the Waygate. That's what you do when you find the Waygate.
Fucking idiot.
Because why am I opening it? So that Huron can sniff if he can smell the scent going in. And Huron's like, I smell it right up into this rock.
No need to open it.
The rock. Right over there, that's where it stops. They've gone into that rock. And he's like, no, don't worry. She'll be right, mate. Grabs the leaf.
I've done this before.
Of Vendosora. It starts to glimmer and shimmer. And as this thing's opening, the black wind is waiting for them there. Machin Shin. And, Jody, I forgot. I should have kept this all right in front of me. I need to read it to you. This is my favorite part.
No, I've already read it again this morning.
Come on, this time now. It's calling for Althor with the sweet, sweet screams and the death and the blood and all the gory stuff. So, yeah, they then realize the black wind is escaping this Waygate. And Rand, in that moment of readiness, has already in the void, and he is just channeling. And it is just... Now, is he the only one that can see the weave that he's channeling at that moment?
Oh, yes. You have to be able to channel to see a weave.
See it, yeah. So he is bright light, white power against black wind, just busting loose. And he gets to the point where it's not even white hot anymore. It's like it's metal would melt. Just the power starts taking him. I think this is the first time that he channels balls. It's just going crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and Loyal, it's at the time in the shock, Rand dropped the leaf to close the Waygate. And Loyal is like scrounging on all fours in the grass to get it back into play. And I don't even think Perrin at that moment doesn't know what the fuck is going on. He's just like, Jesus Christ, we're going to die. And Rand eventually gets Machin Shin pushed back in. And at that moment, Loyal slots in the 3-leaf clover and the gate closes.
I don't think that Rand actually managed to push it in. I think Rand managed to keep it from coming out to some extent, and that the closing of the gate pushed it back in, because Rand was busy losing that battle.
Oh, really? I felt that it was kind of a stalemate, and it was sort of on even ground.
By the time Loyal puts the leaf back in the gate, the bubble is protruding out of the gate by a span. That's 1.6 meters. It's sticking out. I'm going to cling to that one, Jody.
I thought that was the black wind that was out. Like Machin Shin was actually a span out the door already.
Yes. I wanted to clarify that. Yeah. So like it's not only waiting for them at the door, but it's coming out of the Waygate into our world. Okay, so that's what I read, but it's so unbelievably fucked up that I just wanted to double check.
When they tell Perrin that, she also says that can't happen.
That can't.
It was busy. I mean, they say it's a span. By that point, by the time the gates start closing, it had pushed out a span.
1.6 meters.
And it is calling for Althor. So,
theory time.
Do we even dive into this and saying that...
Absolutely, it's why we're here.
Paid and Fane, do we even now dare to delve into this old power that was Mordred? And what he brought in with him Machin Shin and Mashada. It's like all of that again is pulling into this. Like if Fane has the ability to use the ways as a general hailing a cab without any fear, I think that more death in him, has the ability to control those two entities. He somehow has the ability to, whether it is instruct them or stop them, like he has got something to do with them.
I also feel like he can at least communicate with it in some way. Varen says later, because I think Rand speculates about this, like the wind was there waiting for me. And Varen just says, that's impossible. It's a thing. It has no mind, like it's a thoughtless thing. But Fane, when he was following them through the ways to Faldara, was right behind them. Remember, he got like really close and had to scamper back a bridge to stay further away from them. And they just made it out ahead of Machin Shin.
Which would
and
mean
then Fane came
been
out.
Taken. No, exactly.
So he would have been in it. And now Machin Shin has a voice in there calling for Althor. So something has been communicated between them. And like you said, Vili, Fane he's just cruising through the ways with like no issue. He's not scared of it at all. And also, he doesn't have an Ogier with him. He can't read Ogier script. How does he know where to go? So Fane has a comfort level with the ways that does not seem normal.
No, not at all.
He's the same as for any other human.
He is the way he Waygate's his territory at the moment. And that is for me the whole Mordred thing that plays into him.
And now, at the risk of jumping ahead a little bit, we know that Machin Shin is at the next Waygate they go to as well. And what we know is that Mordred, or at least Fane, not Mordred, but the Fane entity, can track Rand. And Rand is at the other Waygate as well. So did he imbue some kind of ability for Machin Shin to track Rand as well?
There's something I want to point out here. I'm just reading that text that Vili wanted to read. The blood so sweet to drink the blood. Blah, 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 drop so pretty, grind your bones, split your bones, all that crap. And worst of all, a whispering thread through all the rest. Althor, Althor, Althor. So it's not Machin Shin speaking and then putting the word Althor in. It's Machin Shin speaking, and in the background, through it all, is Althor, Althor. Like two different lines of speech.
Sure, yes.
So I think it's like another merged thing. It's not entirely
just the wind.
Just the wind whispering.
It's they're like working in tandem.
Up into this stage that calls Rand Althor. Althor is Fane.
Yes.
There's not another entity or another antagonist or protagonist or anything that refers to it as Althor.
I don't think we're disputing who is the originator of that message. It's just more like, how do you reconcile this mindless thing calling, like being present with another voice that is calling to Althor and also is trying to get at Rand out of the ways and is also at the next Waygate when Rand is there. That should not be possible. It should not be ready and waiting at a Waygate that Rand is going to be trying to open.
I think we're selling more death and therefore Fane quite short in the power that he has.
We're probably never supposed to know how this is the case. Again, we're still on book 2. We've got that book 1, book 2, maybe even a little bit of book 3 weirdness, the things that go, Robert Jordan just going, yeah, this sounds kind of cool and magical. I don't have to explain how this works. This doesn't have to fit into the rules of channeling. But, people have gone since then and tried to sort of connect the dots. And, Fane and Mordeth, they've blended into one. That same concept is alive and well with Isom and Luke as well. So this idea of melding personalities, even Rand and Moradin later, like
Luz.
share traits, and
swapping
Luz,
body.
True. So there's all this idea of like combining consciousnesses together to form something new that already happens. We know that Fane, before he was also inhabited by Mordeth, was a product of the Dark One. Like, they did unspeakable things to him. We speculate, and most people do, including the people in fiction, that the Black Wind is a sort of a byproduct of the taint being present in the actual creation of the ways, because when the male channelers made the ways originally and handed over the talisman of growing to the Ogier, the male half of the source had already been tainted.
Yeah.
And that the black wind is a sort of like either a parasite or a manifestation of it. And Vili, that theory that you put out way back in the first season about, Mashadar coming from the elfin and the eelfin, that's not the theory. That actually is established, I think, somewhere. But the fact that it exhibits similar properties to Machin Shin, it's kind of mindless. It's limited to a certain, location. It's trapped inside Shadow Logoth. Machin Shin is trapped inside the ways. It's also kind of mindless. They're both, mist and wind are these sort of, they're not tactile, like they're just these sort of things blowing around. It's there's a lot of similarities between them, and I don't think it is that much of a stretch to feel like Fane in his current incarnation, when experiencing Machin Shin, would not go the same way as a normal human or Ogier walking in there. There are competing powers at play there, and as we even see with Rand's wound later, when Fane cuts him on the same wound that was caused by the Dark One's taint from Ishmael's staff, those powers also react to each other in a weird way, and they sort of come to a stalemate. So neither one of them is having the effect that they normally would have. And a similar thing is happening here, where two powers probably unknown to each other are sort of competing and becoming something different because of their exposure to each other.
I have a theory.
Oh, the first theory on this podcast ever.
Here we go.
It's clear that Fane can control Mashadar. Like, he has control over it. But he doesn't have control over Machin Shin. I think it's like you said, there's like with Rand's wound, it's two evils that are equal and opposing. So now it wins. And this is what happened when he was going through the gate at Faldara. He was obviously between them. I mean, the Machin Shin was between him and the boys. So there must have been some connection. Maybe there was some conflict there, but neither wins because they're equally and opposite powerful. But I think that maybe the hatred of Althor is imbued, has been transferred. He doesn't control Machin Shin, but Machin Shin is like absorbed this hatred of Althor.
Feeding off him.
And can also sense him, and that's why it's not Fane directing him to the other Waygate at Steading Sofu. It's just going there because it can also feel Rand.
I agree. And that's exactly what I think, Joe, because Fane wouldn't want Machin Shin to destroy Rand right at the Waygate. If he's trying to lure Rand to Thom Head for whatever his plan is, killing him at a Waygate is not the way to do that.
Yeah.
No.
He wants him to use the Waygates.
Yes.
All right. So we exhausted that little section there right now.
So you're not done yet, are you?
No, we're not done in this chapter yet at all.
Okay.
They then realize, okay, this is pretty shit. They decide, leg over this wall, we got to move. We're going to get the crew and get out of here. At least we know where it is and what we don't have, and what are we going to do next, because they could be on their way to anywhere. Matt remembers that he must still hobble as soon as he goes in there, even through his complaining. He still acts the part and plays the part that he's required to. And luckily, when Rand gets into the party halls, he sort of sees that no one is held up anymore, and they can just leg out of there. And Barthanes is pretty upset that they're like, "Oh, you're leaving my party so soon," and they're like, "Yeah, no, tired, gotta run,
nailed
things
his voice."
to do." And at that moment, Rand thought he was got away, and he grabbed him, and that's when he tells him he's got a message for him. He basically gives him the message from Lugarder that we both know. And Rand immediately realizes this is Fane, and that tells him pretty much where he's going. He's going to Thom Head. That's it. I'll wait for you there. That's where the fight's at. Bring it.
But Barthanes is, after he says all of this, he just spills the beans and then looks shocked that he did it. Is this Ta'Veren at work again?
I thought so.
Yeah, and that's the end of the chapter.
Hello, friends. Mo here from the editing desk. I just wanted to quickly interject to say, as the more astute listeners would have noticed, that this is not actually the end of that chapter. There's another little section where the team catches up and Rand relays the message from Barthanes. But I do quickly summarize that section at the start of the next chapter when we join the gang while they are en route to steading Sofu. So never fear, that content will be covered. And now, back to our regular programming. Yeah, hectic one. Rand channels like a fire in the inside the Black Wind, and Euron actually sees it, and he asks them, "Was he going to shoot that? Was the wind going to shoot that at us?" And Rand just keeps quiet. I mean, Loyal also doesn't know that Rand can channel.
And Rand is channeling almost too much power that he burns himself out. Like, this is the most he's ever channeled. Like, after he says he must feels like he's been swept away. He was this close.
It would be a cool shot in the show if they show Rand and, like, you know, like him glowing or, like, you know, straining and stuff, and then they cut to, like, Euron or Loyal's point of view and Rand's just standing there.
He's just on his knees,
Just do
I think. Like he's frozen in fear.
Find the leaf. Yeah.
I'm working here, guys.
Also, when they get outside, Rand can swear that he hears a footstep.
At the into the garden, yes.
When they go out into the garden and they're sneaking around, Rand hears a footstep. He swears he could hear someone walking, and then nothing.
Lanfear?
Who's that? My thought was Lanfear, because with her, like, I don't know why, but like when he was reading those letters in that room and he could smell her, I thought she was there. Then there's this. I thought maybe she's there watching him again. I mean, she's got a history of watching him, right? Like, she was spotted in those villages where the people were killed when he was traveling with Ingtar.
She's a huge perv. So definitely.
She's keeping an eye on him. I wonder if she's kind of like moving around invisible.
Well, she knows how to do that. They also mention again, this is like the third time that someone has said this, that with the dagger inside the chest, maybe it's dampening the effect of the dagger. So I'm starting to believe that it does do that. It's when Matt says he hasn't sensed the dagger. Rand says, "Don't worry, you know, it's probably because I put it inside that chest." Which just makes Rand's original idea of putting it in the chest seem that much better.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Matt is still hanging in there. Like, his body looks like shit, but he's still pretty, you know high-spirited. And it's probably that lost that connection.
Maybe. Varen says that the sickness has taken a weird turn in him.
It's because it's in the chest.
It's interesting.
All right.
Chapter 34, Joseph. The wheel weaves.
Indeed it does. It never stops weaving. So we join Thom returning in the wee hours of the morning. The Barthanes' guests, after Barthanes had gone to bed, remember that, his guests had stayed behind and roped Thom into telling some more stories and then interrogate him about Rand, because he took that time to chat, to escape those three women, to chat to Thom, and that, got Thom in trouble. So now he had to stay there until the sun rose with these people that he hates intensely.
Or asking about, how do you know this Andoran lord, and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
So he's neck deep in the game.
All right. So he actually even stopped at Rand's inn on the way back because he wanted to have a chat with him. He's still being tugged, but he decided not to say anything at that time. And he's decided, okay, he's out. They're going to have that clean cut, which is not so clean as it turns out. No. So anyway, he heads back to his place, to his inn. Bunch of grapes, I think it is. So when he gets to his room, he sees old Dina is sleeping on the bed. She's fully clothed, facing the wall. So he thinks like, she must have fallen asleep, waiting up for him. So he goes to wake her and then finds her throat slit. No, poor old Dina. She's eyes are open. She's been dead for some time. The bed is soaked in blood. Shame poor Dina. She only just popped into our lives for the briefest of moments, and now she's gone again. But right then he hears the wardrobe behind him creaking, and it's assassins. And of course, Knives Out. He spins, turns, knives come out, and he throws them all in the same movement because he's a fucking legend. And there's first knife that goes out of his hand, hits this fat, balding man right in the throat as he's stepping out of the cupboard or closet, whatever you want to call it, and takes him down, gurgling in his own blood. But because of this turn that Thom did was on his bum leg, he kind of loses his balance, and the second knife that also left his hand at the same time for the second assassin coming out of another wardrobe. Always check your wardrobes, people, when you come home.
Yeah.
You never know. And this one still hits the guy, but not in the throat, but hits him in the shoulder, and as he's climbing out of this wardrobe, and he drops the knife because now his arm doesn't work. But before he can take even another step, Thom's launched himself forward, got another knife out, and slices the back of his leg. I imagine he hamstrings him in some kind of way, and grabs him by the greasy hair on his head, and slams his face into the wall, pushing the knife that's in his shoulder deeper into him. So it's like, this is fucking amazing. Spoiler alert, my favorite scene. So,
spoiler alert, I knew.
So it's like it's literally in seconds. Turns around, throws two knives, kills one guy, other in the shoulder, slips, darts across the room, slices his leg, grabs him by the head, smashes his face into the wall. This is an old man with a bum leg. And these two fat assassins, muscled and scarred, and didn't stand a fucking chance.
Yeah.
All right. So then Thom grabs him and starts to interrogating him, like, why are you killing me? Why did you kill my girl? Like, why? And
holding a knife to his eye.
Yes, holding a knife to his eye. That usually gets people to talk. And this guy says, the assassin says that he was hired by Barthanes. But Thom's not convinced. He was like, dude, I've been in Barthanes' house this entire night. I've stood right next to him. If you wanted to kill me, you could have done it at any point. Not let me walk all the way home. Like, this is ridiculous. So the guy starts, no, okay, like, how about we make some money? He's starting to start bribing, like, about this law that everyone wants to know about, this young Andorian. Rand is his name, and he tries to get information, like, why don't we split the money? Let's get money, sell this information, because he realizes that Thom's not happy. But Thom is having none of it, because you killed Dina, so you die, and in the knife goes, through the eyeball, into the brain. Delicious stuff.
That'll do it.
So shame, man. Thom is devastated, obviously. And just then, Zera, the
innkeeper,
that's the word I'm looking for. Like, we haven't read that word enough in these books. She enters. Thom turns around, is ready to kill the next person who enters the room. Luckily he does not kill her. So she consoles him, obviously. And he says, like, listen, I've got one more man. I've got a man to kill now. And she's like, if you're talking about Barthanes, don't bother, because it's all over the news. He was killed last night. And the only reason they know it was him, because they chopped up his body into chunks and left his head on a spike above his bed, above the mantle of the fireplace, so in his bedroom. So that's how they know it's him that's dead. Now, pause. That sounds like a feign kind of thing to do. And because he spilled his guts to Rand as he was leaving the room, told him all the plans that we just spoke about, and they were shocked that he did it, like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have said that. Is that retribution, tying up a loose end now. But my impression was that Fane had already left. Like, he was already in the ways.
I'm still not, 100% sure who killed him. Because for me, Fane had told Rand, I'll meet you at Termin's Head. Not just there, not through Bartman, but in Faldara, in the keep already. This is not.
He wants Rand to know.
He wants Rand to know.
He gave the message to Barthanes to give to Rand.
So I'm honestly, I think that there was maybe another Daes Dae'mar sickly power move from someone.
The
Cairhien, or
maybe because Rand went to Barthanes' manor.
Yeah.
And not the king.
But that seems excessive, to chop up his body into pieces and put his head on a spike.
It's also excessive to cut a woman's throat for a guy that just plays the flute and that spoke to a guy for 2 minutes. These people are excessive in their game.
All right. We just
Yeah. Don't
we'll
know.
just say it's Daes Dae'mar. All right.
Joe, to me, it also seemed because they actually say they tore his body to pieces. Like it seems like a primal attack, and then like head on a spike is like just the pièce de résistance.
Maybe it was Trollocs.
I mean, tearing humans apart is a Trolloc thing. It's a Trolloc move right there.
It is.
All right.
But I also had this is Barthanes was still alive after they'd confirmed that everyone had passed through the Waygate.
So I don't know. Anyway, unpause. We'll put a pin in that and get back to it. And then, obviously, Zera tells him that, look, you can't go and kill Barthanes because he's already dead. But I recognize one of these dead guys on your floor. One of these 3 dead people. I recognize one, and that's Galdrian's man. It's the worst kept secret in the city that is Galdrian's man. And then he's like, well, then I have someone else to kill. And she has to try and convince him to not try and kill the king. That's not going to end well for you. No. So anyway, he's in a lot of pain, emotionally speaking. He just wants to kill somebody. So she convinces not, don't do that. So eventually she convinces him to chill out. He says, look, I'll go back to Andor. Maybe that's a good idea. And she's like, no, that's a shit idea. You should stay away from royal courts in general.
Yes.
Just don't go there because you're going to end up dead. And that's not what Dina wanted for you. So anyway, she agrees to like, okay, you just go, you hit the road and run away, and I'll take care of everything in the room and clean up all of this mess. So this is obviously not the first time she's had dead assassins lying around in her inn that she's had to dispose of. Maybe she has some pigs out back. And then Thom looks out the window and he sees smoke again. Something else is burning. Turns out they've set fire to the granaries. Oh no, the granaries. Maybe this is why Rand later on has so much problem with grain shipments. They keep burning the granaries. And riots have started in the city. I suppose people have found out that Barthanes has been murdered. I don't know what's caused the riots. It's on the news. It's all on the news, right? Yes. It's in the Google feed. So riots. And I've written here in Afrikaans, we can teach some people some new Afrikaans. When he leaves, when Thom leaves, he has this wolfish grin, which is mirthless on his face. And I thought to myself, no gaan hulle kak. Which Billy, I think, can explain. Now these people are going to shit, to be precise. Yep. All right.
They're going to shit bricks.
They're going to shit bricks. Now they're in trouble. All right.
Now they're going to get it.
This old man has shown these 2 assassins exactly who he is. The Fade knows who he is. So, he's not to be trifled with.
Dina was Thom's only real reason for not helping Rand the first time Rand came to him. And now she's gone.
Yep. That was the only thing holding him back from rejoining them.
I remember that being one of my notes from that chapter, that if it wasn't for Dina, he might have joined them more easily or at all. But she was the one thing that sort of brings him back. Like, no, I can't do this. I've got Dina. I'm training her up. This is a good life. I'm setting up a good thing here. And now that she's gone, he's free to act on that impulse to help the boys.
Now,
or Rand specifically.
As a plot point, was Dina's character even necessary? Why have this little charade over a couple of chapters where he says, I don't want to join you, and then she dies and he joins them anyway? It's just like, why do it?
Because it gives him that angry ammo.
So she got fridged, right? I mean, that's what's commonly known as fridging.
Commonly?
Yeah, when a female character is set up as the emotional catalyst for sending a hero off on a quest for revenge or redemption or something like that. A female character is set up to die to create the emotional impetus for the character to go forth and go do his quest.
Go do murder.
All right. Fine then. That's why. I think I think your character will be chopped from the TV show.
Yeah, probably. Can easily. Seems unnecessary.
There's a lot of chopping that can be done there.
But they can't, because it wouldn't set Thom off. Otherwise, they have to rewrite that whole section. Now we're going to digress. Yeah.
Thom's whole interaction with Rand could be different. When they meet and Thom is convinced to come with him again. Oh, you've got an Aes Sedai with you. I better protect you. Off we go.
Let's throw dice.
That Aes Sedai protection thing is enough, yeah. Anyway, so now we've cleared that up. And then we're done with this part with Cairhien. So we're heading off to Felme. Like, it's still so hard.
I love the pause.
This is going to
We're
be
done with Cairhien.
I had to look at the map and imagine that the C was a K, like you said, because now that's in my head. Anyway, so we join old Padan Fayin in Felme. And he's come out of the Waygate in an abandoned steading. He's done some torturing. He's been there a while already. He's done some torturing and some questioning of the locals, as he is prone to do. So he's up to speed on who the Seanchan are, how their hierarchy works, kind of, who the soldiers are. He knows about the oaths, so he knows what to say if he gets questioned, and all of this stuff. He's pretty sharp. So he's been scoping out.
My first note about Fane is sharp.
Yes, Fane is sharp.
Agreed.
So he's been scoping out the town, and he knows the comings and goings and who he needs to go and chat to find out about, because he knows now about Lord what's his face, Turak. So what he does is actually goes in. He manages to get past the guards, telling them he's brought a gift and all of that kind of stuff for Lord Turak, and he gets in to have an audience, which seems quite fortuitous. This Lord Turak just loves having random weirdos walk into his manor house and have conversations with him.
He pretty much says as much.
Yeah, because he keeps him around in the end as well. I assume that old Bale is still hanging around there at some point. He
mentions him.
Oh, yes, he does. All right. But we don't see him.
No. He just says, I will also keep you like one other that is sort of amusing me in this boring land.
Yeah.
He references Doan.
I don't think that is Fane being sharp and making those plans. I think that is Mordeth. That was his whole modus in the past, to work his way next to power. If Fane was sharp, being a dark friend that he was for all these years, he would have been sharp enough to realize what he was hunting was in front of him for 7 freaking years.
Look, I mean, to distinguish between the two at this point is academic. They don't, it's not like walled off personalities that he switches between one, and they are a melding of the two. So when we're talking about Fane, it's just because that's the body that this new being inhabits and is moving around. I mean,
I just don't want to give him the person credit for anything.
You just dislike him that much.
Just dislike him that much. I just like, there's this bad guy that has been a bad guy for thousands of years, trapped in this bad city. I'll give him the credit because he lost that city.
It's not Mordeth's soul sitting inside Fane's body next to Fane's soul. They're not like two separate entities. It's what usually happens when Mordeth, or what is supposed to happen when Mordeth lures someone out of Shadar Logoth, is that he would completely take over their body and they would become Mordeth. Like that consciousness would be that person. But because of the stuff that the Dark One had already done to Fane, Mordeth couldn't do that. And instead of that, they merge. And they're not neighbors. They are the same person.
Become a super Fane.
A super Duis. So anyway,
quite.
Indeed. He's there. Anyway, he manages to get in to see Lord Turak. And he presents him with the chest. And he says it's from the Age of Legends, and he brings him this great gift. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to open it yet, but soon he will. And Turak goes, "Oh, I've seen some of these boxes before from the Age of Legends." Fiddles with it for 2 seconds and opens it up. So there goes all of Fane's leverage. Like, oh, fuck. So yeah, he looks inside it and he sees, oh, like, what is this? And Fane tells him that's the horn of Valir. And there's a very faint, because he's a lord, very faint expression, reaction on his face. But that blonde dude with the half-shaved head almost shits himself. His mouth literally falls open. And there's the horn of Valir and some dagger. And Fane sees the dagger. I think that immediately as well, because as soon as he sees it, he goes bananas again for the dagger. Like, he must have it. He even reaches out.
He reaches for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pays for that. But that's in a bit. So Turak takes the horn into his little anteroom where he's got his cupboard of rare, cool shit that he's been collecting for thousands of years. Yes. And puts it with the rest of his stuff, with his 2 Quendalar seals and all that kind of shit. And Fane is now struggling hectically to control himself around the dagger. Eventually, that's when he can't take it anymore. He tries to reach out and take it. But that blonde guy, what's his name? I'll just call him the blonde guy.
I think it's Huon.
Huon. Well, that's not going to confuse things. Huron, Huon. So Huon punches him. Just punches him in the fucking face. Like, how dare you, unshaven dog? Like, you can't take this. You've already given it away. You can't take it back. But I've got thanks to Billy, like my note is, and like with Mr. Krabs, Turak is intrigued by Fane and decides to keep him around for shits and giggles. I couldn't think of his name. I had to write Mr. Krabs, and I was like, shit.
Bail Dae'mar.
Bail Dae'mar.
So yeah, he keeps him around as well. Decides, okay, I'll keep you around. So Fane wants Turak, because Turak's like, why are you doing this? Why are you bringing me? And he gives him some big spiel, some rubbish story about his family has always believed and passed down from generation to generation that we will await the return and blah, blah, blah. Turak doesn't buy any of it. He's no fool. But he does, he's intrigued, and some of it is true. And he does have the horn of Valia, so that is a big thing. Fane wants Turak to blow the horn because he's deciphered from this, what's happening, that the main guy from the Sean-Chan on, within reach at this moment is Turak. He's the main dude. Yeah. But Turak says, look, he's not going to blow the horn because that would go against the Empress. May she live forever. And Fane protests, but of course then gets punched in the head for this again. He spends a lot of time being punched in the head by Blondie and then decides,
that's great.
He goes, he's just figured out how this blonde guy is going to die. Which I suppose comes back later on, I hope, because I would like to see how he dies. I don't remember. But anyway, so Turak explains, there's a whole bunch of exposition here about the Sean-Chan, about the Empress, about the House of the Nine Moons. We hear about Tuon for the first time. As he doesn't want to blow the horn and take away the glory because he's only 12th in line for the throne or something like that. And he knows that you think the game of houses is crazy in Cairhien. Cairhien, damn it, I'm halfway there. Cairhien. It's even crazier in Sean-Chan. We all learn about the Seekers of the Truth, which I imagine is kind of like the White Cloaks questioners, kind of an arm of the.
They are. I got more of like a Gestapo vibe.
Well, yeah, isn't that what questioners are? Gestapo, in my opinion.
Well, the questioners wear uniforms with a red shepherd's crook on them.
Yes.
Where the Gestapo wore plain clothes and pretended not to be listeners.
No, but that's the difference.
They were secret.
There's two things. There's the Seekers of the Truth and the listeners. They're two separate. The listeners are the ones you never know who they are. They're in there listening, and they report to the Seekers of the Truth, who then come and stick hot pokers up your butt, I imagine. I don't know what these people do. Tracks. And he also mentions the Crystal Throne for the first time, which is capitalized. And I actually have a theory from many, many years ago that I shared on an early forum on the internet that the Crystal Throne is actually a Teangriel. And it can compel people because there's a line in the book somewhere as well that people walk away from their Crystal Throne, their legs are weak, they feel that it will get there. But yeah,
I remember you doing that.
Yeah,
but I don't remember what the theory was. I just remember that you thought it was a Terangriel.
Yeah, based on some of the text in the book. But that comes much, much later when they actually talk about how people are physically affected after leaving the throne room, being in front of the Crystal Throne. But anyway, Fane convinces Turak then at this point that Rand is the Dark Friend, that he's got to be watching out for this Dark Friend named Rand al'Thor, and he's looking for the horn, and he'll definitely be coming with it, coming to look for it, and he has Trollocs with him. And Turak mentions that there are no Trollocs in Sean-Chan, that there have never been Trollocs. And there's a line here that he says, the armies of the night had other allies, other things. He doesn't get into what they have besides, they don't have Trollocs. But interestingly for me there, he uses the past tense. So the armies of the night had other allies, other things. It's all past tense to them. Is it in Sean-Chan?
Is he not just referring to the Grolm? Because he also says he always wondered if a Trolloc could kill a Grolm.
Yes.
Like maybe he'll pit them against each other.
But they use Grolm. It's there. I didn't think it was a thing from the dark.
Themselves.
I don't know. So I'm thinking maybe they defeated, because there was the War of the 100 Years, the Trolloc Wars as well.
What is the exact line? What is he saying?
The armies of the night had other allies, other things. And it's past tense. So it's not like there are still Trollocs. because Fane mentions that Rand is coming and he has Trollocs with him, and Turak's like, I've heard of these Trollocs. We don't know them because we've never had them in Seanchan. Nobody, Seanchanians don't know what Trollocs are. But he mentions that it's like everything he talks about, these other things that the armies of the dark had, but had, all past tense. Like Trollocs still exist in the present in Randland.
You think that he's talking about the armies of the dark in Seanchan?
Yes. No, that's
right.
Not think that's what he's talking about. In Seanchan, they don't have Trollocs. The Dark One had other allies and other things fighting for him. But it's all in the past tense. Makes me think Krollocs.
Half Grom, half human.
That's it. So I'm wondering whether, like, during the Trolloc Wars, there was also an invasion on the other side of the world from the Blight into Seanchan, and they fought them off more successfully. And there aren't any shadow spawn running around, like not constantly harassed by shadow spawn like Randlandians are. Like the Borderlanders are constantly fighting Trollocs. It's a ever-present threat, but it's not so in Seanchan. But I could just be reading into things, which is what we do.
I don't remember anything.
All right, and then that's it. He manages to. He gets released after that. Told to come back tomorrow. They put a coin in his hand and kick him out, and he goes running off into the hills, giggling like a crazy person. His plan is in action.
Yeah, can count on him for that.
Yes, and that's it. That's how that chapter ends. It was a long chapter, a lot of exposition, which I trimmed significantly to get it down to 1 page.
Many thanks.
You're most
I
welcome.
also had very few notes.
Yeah, there's not a lot that is fun and interesting. It's just
it's setting up Turak a bit as well. Like, I like the fact that, like, you also drew attention to, Jody, like Turak just opens the chest.
Yeah.
He's not painted as a fool. He's loyal to the Empress. He's smart. He's a collector. He's obviously got an interest in history. He's well read. He's well spoken. He does show mercy in his sort of like Seanchan way, even if it is just to keep Domon and Fane around as entertainment. He even talks about giving Fane to the Empress as well, along with the horn, as sort of like a package deal. Like, look at this weird dude and his crazy story about his family. It makes Turak, in my mind, a more formidable foe. He's not dumb, he's not rash. He's smart. He's calculating. He knows shit. My note is Turak immediately opens the chest. Formidable foe, knows shit.
Yes, he does. Blade Master as well. I don't know if you mentioned that. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know if the book has mentioned it yet up until this point.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Probably not.
Don't think so. He was not carrying a sword in any of these scenes.
Up until this time, he hasn't touched the sword or raised the hand.
No. Only to pick up a cup of coffee. Right. Anything else before we head into the last one then?
No, that one there didn't leave me with a great deal.
Yeah, like Joe said, it's all just table setting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the last one we're doing today is chapter 35, Steading Sofu. After the party at Lord Barthanes' manor, the crew had gone back to the inn and reunited with Perrin, and Rand relayed the whole story of what had happened, obviously without the part about him channeling to Machin Shin, but he said that Barthanes had given him a message that he'll be at Thom Head with a dagger and Rand needs to come and find him. Ingtar had said that he thinks that is a complete lie. Why would Fane ever tell him where he was going? But Varen thinks, Varen remembers the messages from Thom Head. She even brings up the dark prophecy that was scrawled on the walls in Faldara. She knows that Thom Head is a focus point for something. So she believes Rand. And then everyone's sort of like, well, it's going to take us months to get there. Should we take a Waygate? And that's when Rand actually comes clean and he says, look, Machin Shin was waiting for us at the door. I don't think that Waygate is an option. So he's thinking maybe we can use the portal stone somehow. And Varen says, don't worry, it's not a problem. There's a steading just to the southeast of here. It's probably a couple days ride, but they should have a Waygate that we can use. And that's where we join the crew at the start of this chapter. They've left Cairhien.
Hey.
Pause Cairhien. and they are riding quite hard. And Varen is setting quite a fast pace, even though Ingtar thinks that they're wasting their time, which is interesting to me because Varen was setting a hard pace with Ingtar's men when they were looking for Rand. Everyone thinking that, okay, she's interested in Rand only. But now that she has Rand with her, she is still setting a hard pace to try and get to the Horn. So she is still very much invested in the fate of humanity, despite being a Black sister. I mean, at this point, to people that don't know that she is a Black Archer member, she would seem as a genuine, like, heroic character, right? Like, we have to go get the Horn. Let's go. I don't know if we've mentioned it in this episode, but it's been obvious throughout the book that Ingtar is desperate to find the Horn. And I think that is, again, for him, he's sort of pinning his own salvation on that. He's trying to turn back from the shadow. He was and is still a Dark Friend, and he feels like finding the Horn could redeem him. And that's why he's placing so much value in it. That's why he's so crestfallen when he can't get a hold of it. So anyway, they're riding. They're about a day outside of Cairhien, and they make camp at the edge of a forest, where Loyal just feels some questions about the setting, and Matt receives some more healing from Varen. She heals him again the next morning, and they set off. And the sun is about, it's high in the sky on the second day when Varen seems to have a visible reaction suddenly, and Ingtar has a sort of a jolt of a reaction when she does as well. And Rand realizes it's them sort of crossing the border of a steading into a, an area where Varen obviously can't channel. And Rand feels it himself. He feels that sensation. And then he looks down the line, and every soldier and every person to a man has a visible reaction when they cross that boundary into the steading. They're riding into the steading, and they all know that they're in there now. And a female Ogier steps into their path. And Loyal is the first one to scramble off his horse and bow, and then everyone sort of follows his lead. Even Varen inclines her head, and Loyal introduces himself and his companions, but pointedly omitting his own steading from his introduction. And after a moment, the Ogier girl, because Rand figures she was younger than Loyal, she is smaller as well in size, she smiles and she introduces herself as Aerith, and welcomes them to steading Sofu. And we obviously know that Aerith is the Ogier girl that Loyal does end up marrying. I think she actually makes an appearance with Loyal again towards the end of the books. Doesn't she travel with him? I feel like she's around again. Even more Ogier, for that matter. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I feel like it is in that same area, Jody, where you thought of that scene of Rand standing in the doorway of that like manor house in the country. And he's doing all that massive channeling.
Yeah,
I feel like there was a congregation of Ogier outside of a steading meeting up with Rand there as well. And I think
they do leave like a bunch of them. I remember them traveling with what? Edith? What's her name? Aerith.
Edith with an R instead of a D.
Yeah, Aerith does leave the steading, and she does hound Loyal quite intently.
Yes. So Aerith offers to take them to the elders. But she asks Varen, who she has decided must be in charge, to leave like the armed men outside of the steading, so that the only Shinarans that come into the steading are actually Ingtar and Huron. Loyal, as they're sort of like riding behind Aerith or walking the horses, I can't remember if they're riding or walking, but he's immediately taken by Aerith as they follow her deeper into the steading, and he actually mentions her beauty to Rand, and Matt starts snickering, saying, a bit too tall for my liking, but sure, I guess if you say she's beautiful, I'll agree. Which he also only does after like Loyal eyeballs him. Then there's a bit of talk about the longing and sort of explaining what the longing is, and Rand asks if Loyal wants to stay in the steading for a while to avoid the longing, and Loyal just says, don't worry, it's not that bad. There was an Ogier named Dalar who spent 10 years with the Sea Folk, and she came back absolutely fine. So I mean, even the duration of the entire story over the 14 books is only 2 years, so Loyal is safe from the longing. Then another Ogier woman appears, and she consults with Aerith and Varen only. She glances over the men and then disappears again. And Loyal is pretty much trying to hide behind his horse. I've got in capital letters, futile.
It's got to be one hell of a horse for him to hide behind it.
He's been well and truly spotted and marked. And then as they keep going, they dick around a bit more as they head deeper into the setting, and they slowly become aware of music and singing. The song is obviously one about working the land and growing the trees. This is an old Ogier song from, when they were still working with the Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends. And Rand realizes that the huge structure he's seen through the trees is actually a massive tree. Okay, Jody, here's your favorite part, some more measurements.
Mm-hmm.
A trunk that is 20 paces thick, so that's 10 spans. So that's 100. No, that's 16 meters.
Yeah, math's
16
terrible.
meters thick. Yeah, so bad.
10 times 1.6, 160?
160 must be. No, there's another stump that's like 200 paces wide. That's what's throwing us off.
That was throwing me off.
But it's like its branches and its sort of mushrooming branches start 100 paces above the ground, with more beyond. And that, we learn, is one of the great trees. And Matt, in his typical Matt fashion, just comments like, wow, you can build 10 houses out of it. You can build 50 houses out of it. And Loyal looks aghast. He's just like, this is one of the great trees. We never, ever cut them down unless they die. None of them ever really die. And some of the oldest ones were saplings in the Age of Legends, which means like some of these trees are more than 3,000 years old. Here's Matt talking about chopping one down and building a house out of it.
That tree will make a fine house.
Yeah. Make 50 fine houses. So more Ogier starts appearing, and Rand notices the subtle differences in the ages. Some of them have beards, some of them don't. The younger males seem to be clean shaven like Loyal. The women and the girls seem to take special notice of Loyal. Rand realizes that the mounds he's sort of been seeing all over the place actually have windows in them, and that they're the actual Ogier houses. But any kind of stonework seems like it was formed by natural forces, wind and rain and water. Like none of it looks like it was made. It's no IKEA straight lines anywhere. It's all natural formations. And that's when Rand notices the stump, which it used to be the trunk of a great tree, obviously. But this one is 100 paces across. So that's 60 meters. Jeez. Or 80 meters. That's gigantic.
That is a football field of stump.
Yeah, and I mean it's smooth on top, like polished and worn over time. It's got multiple little staircases going up it onto it, from the sides. Just a very, very impressive piece of nature. And that's when Aerith mentions, oh, here come our other guests, all nonchalant and innocent-like. And Ingtar looks over, and 3 women approach, 1 young one and 2 older ones, but they are clearly Aiel. And Ingtar says, these are maidens of the spear. And when they notice the humans, the youngest one says, Shinarans. And they veil themselves, and they start advancing with their spears, like not even hesitation.
So why are they allowed to bring weapons in?
Well, they all have weapons in.
Oh, I thought
Ingtar also has his sword.
Oh, right.
Rand has his sword. Perrin has his axe. I mean, they all have weapons. It's the armed men. It was like bringing a force of people in there.
Okay.
Although those maidens probably could have dealt with all the Shinarans as well.
Easy peasy.
So they start advancing on the men. Ingtar and Huron immediately, unsheath their weapons, and they tell everyone to stand aside. And Loyal is he's shouting, remember the pact, remember the pact. But the women are not slowing their advance at all. Rand realizes he's got his sword in his hands. Perrin loosens his belt loop for his axe, like he's getting ready to fight. And Matt's reaction is funny, because Matt is sort of looking at them like they're going crazy. He's like, what are you guys doing? They're women. We're not going to fight women. And he starts like trying to mount his horse to run away. He's like, I'm not going to let them stick those things in me, but I'm not going to fight a woman.
Yeah, that comes up a lot with him in the books.
It does. I was about to say, that's a theme with him, right?
Yes.
Like he refuses to. Who does he he actually has an actual fight? Is it with Tuon? Like, do they like kick the shit out of each other at some point? He has a fight with a woman that he really has a hard time with, like getting himself to actually do anything. But Varen is also, and Aerith, are saying like, don't do this. And at that moment, an older Ogier steps into the middle of this thing and he shouts at them. Well, he doesn't shout at them, but he says, do you remember what is the meaning of this? Do you remember the pact? And he's obviously a guy of some authority, because at his word, they do stop. The women do stop. And he says, have you forgotten so quickly about the pact and everything? And the Aiel women seem sort of embarrassed now, and they sort of take off their veils and they say, no, we have not forgotten the pact. But we are in the land of tree killers, where every hand is against us. Despite the fact that these are Shinarans, they're not tree killers, quote unquote. They're not from Cairhien. So I was also surprised that when Loyal and Perrin and Aerith, all those guys are shouting about the pact, they didn't react. It was only when this guy of some authority walked in, and they sort of make their excuses and they gather their things and they walk off. But before walking off, they give everyone a hard look, especially Rand. He gets a real stink eye, and the youngest one even sort of grumbles, look at him, he's carrying a sword.
Yeah, that is like, look at you wearing those clothes, carrying that sword. Like, what have you
even
done?
the Aiel think
He's
Rand
an
looks
Aiel.
like an Aiel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Ogier that stepped in just reminds everyone that they're in a setting, that everyone is safe here. He introduces himself as Juin, and he's come to take them to see the elders. And that's when the Aiel sort of skulk off. Aerith says that the Aiel came for Sung Wood, and that they have 2 tree singers in Steading Sofu. She's heard that Steading Shangtai has a talented young singer, but they have 2 at Steading Sofu. That's Loyal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perrin quickly dismisses the quest for Sung Wood and says that's garbage. They're here to seek he who comes with the dawn. And Matt chimes in like, yeah, Rand, they're looking for you. And Rand's just like, what are you talking about? And they get to it a bit later. They explain to him. But then Aaron, they walk a little bit further into the town, and Aerith shows them a house that's been set aside for human guests. It's got furniture, adequate for human use, but is still like slightly off. Like Rand is a tall guy and he sits in a chair, but his feet still don't touch the ground, like that sort of thing.
Like
everything is just slightly off. Yeah, like kids, which the Ogier probably view them as.
They are in Ogier standards.
Babies.
Yeah.
So when Aerith leaves again, Rand goes, what do you mean they were looking for me? And Matt relays the meeting that they had with Urien in Kinslayer's Dagger. And every now and then Perrin has to sort of like chime in to just keep Matt's story in check and keep it factually correct, because he likes to embellish. So Rand just rejects the idea of him being the one that they are looking for. But in the back of his mind is like, well, this person, that person, Inktar, like all these people think. He doesn't even list all of them. He lists a couple that think he looks like an Aiel. And the last one is Tam. But he sort of dismisses, no, but that was a fever dream. He is just in complete denial. Like, he's listed a number of people, and not even all the people that we know of, that have said to him, to his face, that he looks like an Aiel. So Ogier girls come in and bring them some food and water, obviously to prepare before meeting with the elders, probably getting the elders all rounded up in their special hall to meet with them. Rand mentions again to Loyal that he's been looking really nervous. And that's when Loyal explains the whole story about if an Ogier girl spots an Ogier boy that she likes, she goes and she tells her mother, then her mother goes to the boy's mother, and they have a meeting and they decide whether this wedding is on or not, and the boy has no say in it. Like, then the wedding is arranged.
Yes.
And Matt laughs at this and he goes, in our culture, it's completely different. The men arrange everything. But as Rand is sitting there thinking about it, he's like, he remembers when Egwene started sort of following him around when they were little, and how it was round about that time that Mistress Alvear like changed her attitude towards him, and then went and met with Tam, and then even started trying to pull Tam into some kind of matchmaking environment. And he says to Loyal, no, Loyal, I think we do it kind of the same way as well. And Rand laughs again. Matt laughs again, and Rand says to him, Matt, when was the last time you remember your dad doing anything that your mom didn't want him to do? And Matt's about to laugh it off, and then he sort of stops and thinks, and he shuts up. So then Juin reappears to summon them all to the elders. And Rand says to Loyal, look, don't worry. If the elders try to make you stay, I will tell them that we need you to, you know, either navigate the ways or something, but we'll need you to come with us. And Loyal just comments that traveling with Tavern friends is pretty tumultuous. Either I stay and get married, or I leave and I travel the ways.
Yeah.
Like, these are my options. And that's how the chapter ends.
No good options.
No, not for him.
Poor Loyal in this one. He knows. He knows. He's stuffed. He's just trying to dodge this. I just want to get out of here. I don't want to know. My parents know where I
He
am.
tries so hard to keep a low profile all the time, and he is just shoved into the limelight.
Well, you want to travel with Tavern. What do you think is going to happen?
Traveling with Tavern, you're not going to be
Three of them.
any kind of.
Yeah,
You're not going to stay in
this
any
is a choice he
shadows.
made.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, well. It's good to hear that his ability to sing the wood, sung wood, is known outside in the other steadings. Like he
'Cause he
himself
plays it
is a little bit of a young book on his own there.
Yeah, because he plays it down when he says to Rand that or when he does the actual singing in the portal. Is it in the portal world where he sings the
Yes.
staff? Because it makes him
Yeah,
uneasy.
when he's like before the Grom, he didn't like the look of the land.
He says to Rand that Elder Hammond would say that he has some talent in it. Like, he plays it down completely, and he is Aerith in a completely different setting, aware of a talented young tree singer in another setting, which is cool. More props for Loyal.
Oh, totally.
Like he needs any more.
I just like it when they build him up, because he is so like self-deprecating almost. Like he's so shy, but he's a giant dude that can throw Trollocs cartwheeling through the air and snapping their necks, and is a talented tree singer, and at some point does wield that staff to devastating effect. I mean, did he say that the thickness of the staff is like Rand's forearm or something like that? Like, yeah, yeah, he's a badass, and he doesn't even know it.
Well, he doesn't like it. He's a peaceful man.
He is a peaceful ogre.
A peaceful ogre. That's better.
Anything else from that one?
The setting sounds like a really nice place to go and visit.
So they
It
live
does.
like hobbits, right?
Pretty much.
Gigantic hobbits in mounds under the ground.
Hobbits or Teletubbies?
Hobbits.
Hobbits, yeah, big hobbits in the ground. That was a very uneventful.
It is.
Chapter I mean,
I went to go see because they named the leader of those three Aiel women. Her name is Rian. And I went and checked online to see if she crops up again anywhere, but she doesn't. She's only mentioned as the Aiel maiden who encounters Rand at Stedding Sofu. Because I would really like for like Rian and Urian and like every single Aiel that they meet along the way to come show up again.
Maybe they become Shido. You never know.
But you do remember there's like 100,000 of them that come over and join the army. So
yeah. Okay, should we just jump straight into our favorite moments then?
Oh,
you've already gone.
Thom,
Why don't you tell us
badass.
again?
Knives coming out of sleeves, killing people.
And I mean, I've said in previous episodes, I think I know which one you're going to go for. In this one, I was more sure than ever before that was the moment that you would go for.
Well, you got it right.
It is a great one. How about you, Vil?
I have two that I struggle to sort of pick through, but I think the big channeling event of Rand at the Waygate with one of the biggest foes that never gets beaten down is a pretty big one. It's just underwhelming in the sense that no one's there to see it, but it's just big in the context of the story, I guess. So I like that. We saw it.
Yeah. Mine was when Rand started, just taking charge and giving orders after Perrin and Ingtar had showed up. Just how quickly he's falling into that leadership role. Like, everyone else can see it in him. Moraine can see it in him. Lan can see it in him. Ingtar can see it in him now. Perrin can see it. Perrin and Matt, when they're sitting in that private dining hall and they're making the plans and stuff, Perrin is thinking about how Rand is looking very comfortable talking to this Aes Sedai as a peer, Ingtar, and Perrin can even see on Matt that Matt is starting to realize that Rand is very comfortable doing this. And we're not done with book 2 yet.
Mm.
So I just like how Rand is naturally stepping into that role. He's defiant of the Aes Sedai. This is the last thing I do with you, then I'm done. Like you said, Jody just calls her by her name. Love it. Now, I want to add one more thing. I want us to start picking favorite moments, but then, like Vili, like you were just struggling between the moment you picked and another one, I would like to add some honorable mentions. And I would encourage our listeners to send in their favorite moments so that we can add them to the honorable mentions. Again, another idea triggered by Adrian's contributions. She sent in her favorite moment. She started off her email with her favorite moment, which was Perrin learning about or figuring out that Rand is Shadow Killer, which is a really, really cool moment and worth mentioning as well. So what's the other moment that you had, Vil?
It was actually that. Parents' whole realization of Shadow Killer.
Yes, that whole cocking of heads.
That whole moment there, sort of, that's a I mean, we actually spoke about this during that chapter.
Yeah.
That is just such a big sort of character development moment in the whole context of it all. It's like he's got to swing these guys onto his side, Lord Rand arrogance and all.
So listeners, please do send in your favorite moments. We'll add them to our honorable mentions section. Adrian, I'm sure, will continue to send in her fantastic contributions, which, like, that pickup of the Brienne Taborwin being Lamgwin's love interest, like many, many books in the future, is a great pickup and is a fun thing to know now.
Yeah.
And which I never would have picked up on. So for people who don't know yet, if you're listening to this episode, I cannot fathom how you wouldn't know how to get a hold of us, but all of our links to our social media accounts are in the episode description. The easiest way is just to get at us on Twitter at Blood and Ash Pod, or on Facebook at Blood and Ashes Podcast. Next week, we will be doing 7 chapters and not 6. So we are going to be covering chapters 36 to 42, 36 being Among the Elders, where the gang obviously gets to go sit and talk to the Ogier elders. And chapter 42 is Folmay, which, Jody, you are almost in, right? You're up to chapter 41.
Yeah, no, everyone's in Folmay now. It's all happening.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, next week we will do seven chapters. And then the following week, we will do the rest of the book. So we are going to finish The Great Hunt in our next 2 episodes. So if you haven't caught up yet, do join in the conversation. We'll use the last couple of chapters of the book are extremely short. I think they're 7 pages, 6 pages, and 2 pages, something like that. So we will, like we did with The Eye of the World, we'll also discuss the book as a whole during that last episode. So that's in 2 episodes time. So yeah, do write into us so that we can add your comments and opinions into our discussion. Anything else from you guys before we sign off?
It's still 40 degrees in my room. That's 100 degrees Fahrenheit for you guys in America. It's hot. It's 11:45 at night. I'm dying.
To the listeners, watching Vili sweat over a webcam has been an interesting experience. I think he's lost 2 kilograms body weight.
Oh, damn well hope so.
All right, guys, on that note, let us bid each other a fond adieu, and I will see you next time.
Adieu.
Adieu.